What's up, people? Let me know. Make sure the audio is all good. You guys aren't hearing me like I'm in a big echo chamber. It's gonna be a fun one. I actually got some great ideas that I wanted to get out and rant about, but I'm not gonna even rant today. Believe it or not, that's right. No rants today. Not that I don't have a reason to. It's just no reason to rant about anything important. What I wanted to start doing, and I want to kind of make it a habit of doing, at least at some part, or better yet, at the beginning of each of these streams, is going through what a flat earther would consider evidence, or even some type of evidence that isn't understood, whether it be by myself or even by science. Like I've been saying, I fully believe this, that there aren't flat earthers, there are globe deniers. For the sake of any information that you've used against the globe, you've gotten from some publication or some art document or article of a scientist that has explained something that they're trying to figure out or is a phenomenon. But again, it doesn't disprove the globe or prove a flat earth. It's only describing what science has told you guys already. So, like I said, open. It's really open topic. Every freaking stream is an open topic unless I make it clear. But other than that, let's get into it. Let's figure this out, because a lot of the things that I'm hearing and seeing that is an issue for flat Earth when it comes to evidence, or even starting what you would call the quote unquote scientific method to figure out a flat Earth, they're either skipping using just observations as evidence, or blatantly saying that a globe fact is not a fact with no citation to back that up. These are things that are very important, because these are the reasons the scientific method was put in place, because a scientist telling you what he did doesn't justify anything, and me telling you how it is doesn't justify anything. But the observations, the tests, and the multiple times they've done these tests, they do provide evidence to figure out where we live, or whatever you're trying to figure out. I think a lot of flat earthers believe that the scientific method is a way a way of just making scientists themselves known, or to validate whatever they want. But realistically, the scientific method is a tool that science uses to better ensure that the evidence provided, or the publication provided, or whatever the scientist is doing provided, is accurate. Now, I am under the full understanding that there have been things published or put forth towards a peer review, and they got passed on basically really shoddy evidence, or publications provided weren't looked at, yada yada yada. It happens. How do we know it happens? Because we're humans, and everyone on that peer review board is a human as well. So they make mistakes, or they get corrupted. But the good thing about it is that each publication, each peer review that is publicized, means it's publicized to the public, which means the thousands and thousands of other scientists that read these to find out what's going on in science, that because they don't talk to every single scientist, they can look at it, and if they see something that doesn't look right, or for instance, any flat earther comes across and looks at and goes, hey, step A and B, or step H, whatever, is wrong. There's no way they could have come up with that calculation. It is wrong. You then can, write in or talk to whoever you would do a peer review in your area, or you would send out your information to, and go against that study. It happens all the time. But the problem is you therefore one, have to know an extreme amount about whatever that topic is, enough to know where they went wrong, how they went wrong, and what is the correct method of coming to a conclusion. Now, I don't know anybody really personally enough a lot of the times to say you do or don't have that qualification, but I haven't heard anybody who has talked to me that would I would get the impression that they have a full understanding, a full method of explaining why it's wrong and how it needs to be resolved. I'm not asking for anything unreachable or unrational. I would think whether it be, describing a type of soda to a friend, or or to figuring out how particles react with other particles. Either way, I mean, you have to understand what you're talking about for it to be actual, or be able to come to a conclusion, is a better way of saying it. Go and chat real quick. What's up, Charlie? What's up, Sean? How you doing? What up, MA2? Let's see. I'm just gonna call you Fletcher because that's what I'm used to. What's up, Florence? How you doing? What's up, Kurt? Again, guys, open panel. I'm not sure. Let me see. I'll put the link out there again. There was another conversation I was having with somebody on a server yesterday that I thought would be a pretty badass conversation. I don't know how many people really know much information about the topic or how you guys feel about it. I mean, but it's open to be talked about. I personally believe that our government has its major issues, major issues, whether it be from campaigning, lobbyists, becoming, having a seat in office. Regardless, there is an issue. I don't think anybody can say I'm wrong. I came across a guy who was saying one of the solutions were that we need to have an anarchism is, I guess, is what I looked it up, and it said anarchism is the political way of describing anarchy on that side of it. And to me, I'm gonna tell you now, it wouldn't work. Why? Because it would only turn into a government for it to work. The crazy part was to me when he was saying this, is he would give me the description of how things need to be solved, which would be, or better yet, for people who have no clue about it, the idea of having an anarchism system, or anarchy, in a political population sense, you would not have a government. Therefore, so imagine that there's no government, and what would end up happening? Imagine your community, village, basically. You guys would sanction yourselves. People who have the skilled trades would do the skilled trade stuff. If a crime or a decision needed to be made, the whole village, the whole community would then vote and make a decision on that situation. It would not be up to, or there would not be someone on the higher up level. Now, when I'm hearing him say this, it does make sense, and it would work 100%. Kind of like, if you guys are having in school, if you're having a school elections, but it's not up to any of the whole school. It's only up to your class. Only your class is making a decision, but you all you're going to do it in a group. It's not a secret. There's no one actually running. You guys are all going to decide. Then that representative of that room basically doesn't make rules or laws, but yet moderates the discussion. And then as a collective, the whole class will make decisions throughout the year for, whatever they're doing, which is kind of why election isn't a good word to use in that. But the problem with that whole I see what you're saying, Hutch. The whole thing with is with the no rules, no slave type mentality of it. You'd have to define slave for one, because in a time before, all this technology, all, money, it wasn't you were getting paid to work. It wasn't a wage. It was you got your the job done, and you would trade for different supplies, or you would exchange, work for a horse, so to speak. And we would, any anarchist system would obviously have to be of that, because you're not going to use any kind of government currency. you brought up a good point in there, Fletcher, where you said a state of disorder due to absence or non-contingency, no authority is what it will always lead back to. It wouldn't work if you really look at it on a and let me preface that. I'm talking about the United States. I don't know how any other countries really work integral of the government like that with the people. So everything I'm talking about is only the United States. So just in case. But let's look at it on the bigger picture now. So we've gotten rid of our government, which means we don't have a military, which means we don't have a police force. We don't have states. It's basically the United States as is. What would end up happening is, and I got to break it down to small sections to make it easier for me to understand it and explain it. But I live in Southern California. If you live in Southern California, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Whereas in, you put that link out again. We have to have water transported or pumped to us through aquifers that run through Nevada, Arizona from the Colorado River. If we didn't have that water trucked and or through the aquifers to us, we wouldn't be able to survive, basically. Southern California wouldn't be livable. Now, what regulates that, what makes it so Southern California residents don't have to worry about being dehydrated and having no water to supply the city. The states and the federal government make regulations and laws and bills and yada 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 to ensure that no one can just cut us off. Now, the states of Nevada, Arizona, California obviously had to have sat down, worked out negotiated how this would work for the benefit of everyone, to ensure that Arizona or Nevada doesn't go into drought because they're helping. So a bunch of checks and balances are put into place. I see you out there, John. And for that reason, because of the fact that these checks and balances are in place, Southern California can survive knowing we'll have water. Nevada, Arizona knows that they will not lose everything they have helping us. Okay. Now we'll put that same situation into our anarchism system. So what will happen is Southern California now needs water. Now, remember, it's not the state representing us. It's now 1,000 different communities, or I'm sorry, it'd be more, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of different communities, basically representing themselves. Because now the state doesn't represent all of us. Each community represents each community for themselves. They aren't with the other communities, but now remember, they kind of got to coexist. So what happens is we have to decide, hey, who has, who can negotiate with us to get that water? Who can negotiate with us to be able to get some, basically get the water we need that's essential for crops, survival, period. That you got to find that person. And because we live in an anarchism system now, there's no representative for Nevada or Arizona to talk to. You then have to figure out, of the tens of thousands of villages in those areas, who can help you. Now, remember, because we're in an anarchism system, there's no checks and balances. They're now deciding, they're having to free for all it to get the water. Now, of course, villages all can coexist and get water and negotiate with other places, and all it could work. But it's kind of hard to make a deal with 100 different villages and communities, and vice versa. So instead of having thousands of deals and negotiations going on, unprivy to the others. Government kind of, the states on the state level are able to represent and have these negotiations a little easier, obviously, to be simplified. Now, that being said, we'll just say, just for sake of saying, that we found the one or the two villages in those two areas, Arizona and Nevada, that we can talk to about this. Okay, perfect. Now, here's the thing. It's a community effort, so no one can make the debt decision. So now you got to decide in a group of, we'll say each community has 1,000. How many of those thousands are going to agree that it's a good idea for us to, or for them to help us and supply us with water? Now, some of them are going to go, it's a great idea. Some of them are going to go, but what about our crops? What about our survival? And they're okay, well, that means we can't give them all of it or all they want. We have to make sure it's regulated. Okay, well, what's the good regulation? Okay, everyone's going to have their different ideas. Now, what if what you've regulated doesn't work for us? We know we're going to need more. Okay, well, hey, here's our choices. We either die or get water. Now, in a regular situation, no one's thinking, we're going to go take over so we can make sure we survive. So let's go attack. Well, actually that isn't true. We do that on a regular basis. Countries attack countries all the time. And for resources, borders, you name it. There are millions of reasons, but we can't just, or any country can't just attack a country, theoretically, guys, and just take. Other countries would then step forth. UN would step forth. People are going to notice, and because of that, no one. Basically, the United States will not declare the world the United States because of these checks and balances in the UN and whatnot. Now, again, we're talking a big picture of, Nevada, Arizona, California, but we're not even talking about, here in Southern California. We're just talking my village. What about the other tens of thousands of villages that are in this neck of the woods that need help with water, that's very far away and not theirs? Well, what if the villages around, that are around us, the we'll say 500 others, what if those people want the same deal? Because they need water too. Okay, well, if we're in an Anarchism system, there's no representative for all of us. Each village has to talk to each other. Well, they're not going to agree, and everyone's not going to get an even amount. Because remember, Nevada and Arizona, they're going to regulate what we get. So now, wouldn't it become an issue between each community or village, I'm saying, in California to be able to get that instead of someone else stealing it or getting it before them or using it so they get very little? There's no regulations. There's no checks and balances in an anarchist system. So what happens? Then those communities and villages, they probably end up fighting it out or merging. But see, merging may not be a good idea, because if you merge, then you need more. And remember, these are tens of thousands of different villages making that same decision all the time. Millions of decisions that need to be made. The idea of a government was to simplify this, to not have to go to war with your next door neighbor, to make sure your survival is key. Now, again, I don't agree with our government. I think there needs to be an insane fix. Let's get that out the way, and just so no one thinks I'm all for government like that. It's just the topic at hand and the way you really need to talk about it. Now, again, we have a mayor of a community, of a city, we'll say. Because understand that if you live in a city here in the States, California, you live in a community, your community, they have representatives. Those representatives can go to your mayor of the city. So that's how the communities get through that. Now, the communities then will go and talk to the city mayor, and the city mayor will then take your request and take that to the state level, which is our governor. The governor is a representative of California. The governor will then talk to the federal government and do the negotiating, blah, blah, blah. Because of it working that way, what ends up happening is instead of the federal government having to talk to tens of thousands of representatives, they have to talk, it leads down to one. Again, I'll preface this, and I don't think I should, but I'll say it again. I'm not for government like that. I think it needs to change, but to have this discussion, we have to be real about what it is. So that's why we have government. Another way is if Texas decides that they're the most badass in the world and they don't want to share, and they have all the resources, and all the states around them have no resources and they need help from Texas, well, these checks and balances, again, state level, federal level, make sure that Texas doesn't say F you and these other states don't band together to attack Texas. Again, this is exactly why we had a civil war. And the way we resolved the Civil War was one government for the United States, as in a representative of all. But remember that these checks and balances is our Constitution. Rights to bear arms, freedom of speech, blah, 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 blah. All these things that really, really matter to it. Now, one of the other issues that I would see being an issue for anarchism is the checks and balances between the states, the checks and balances between the communities, each community, villages of these different areas. Okay, well, we're not even talking countries. Because if we don't have a government, you understand that there are no countries. It's just a world of villages deciding for themselves. So an anarchism system, to me, makes zero sense. Or it will always lead to a government because checks and balances need to be made. Now, on the real level of what I'm talking about, our government has surpassed what was put in place for. People have started to realize they can find gain, motivation for being there. They figured out that their pockets are more important than the communities, basically. And that's where we have all these shady markets and corrupt situations happening. And again, there just needs to be a solution to the checks and balances for them. I've heard things that sounded great to me, like, let's see. Actually, let me go. I can see you guys are trying to tell me something. My bad. I apologize. I did rant. Fuck. Wasn't gonna rant. You're asking these questions. Oh yeah. Hitch. Again, I'm by no means am I telling. I don't know very much. I just started looking it up. Let me go ahead and I'll get the link out to you right now. My apologies for not seeing the chat. And again, yeah, I am no expert in this situation. I am, if anything, my knowledge is really, really shoddy. So I welcome anyone to come in and discuss it, because again, that's how things get figured out. I'm gonna do this real quick. Jeez. Let me see. Yeah, hey Hitch, are you not able to use the link? The link doesn't work for you? I mean, I'm still gonna send it to your email right now. It's just a little different for me to. I'm not used to having to do it that way. Give me 1 second. For those of you who can get on the link, use the link to get on. You go ahead and use that, and then Hitch, I'm sending it to your email as we speak. All right, it's being sent out to you. It's being sent out right now. How you doing, LAB?
Doing fine, Shawnee G.
I saw you earlier on Jose's.
Oh yeah,
it's good to hear.
I like the subject you're talking. I like the subject you're talking about, governments and stuff like that.
Yeah, it really. I have a good idea of how things work. How an anarchism system works, I have no clue. Only my ideas of it and what I was hearing from the guy that was talking about it. But it seems to me that an anarchist system is a good way to overthrow a corrupt government, but no matter what, it would always turn back into a government, I would think. How you doing, Bernie? How you doing, Hitch? How you doing?
Hello.
Hey there.
Yeah, Hitch. I don't
think anarchy's a bad thing. It's always, see, these philosophies are always great, but the minute humans get involved in them, it goes all tits up. So, same as governments. There's nothing wrong with anarchy. Anarchy's not what it gets described by in the mainstream. People, when you say anarchy, they think there's mayhem and burning babies everywhere and fucking mayhem. But it's not like that.
It could, though.
No. Well, not really if you're using, because the whole philosophy behind is for anarchy is you're aware, if you live by the natural law that cause no harm and crap like that, it's a natural progression of an anarchist not to do any of that, but he still gets his free will to do what he wants, but he takes responsibility for that kind of thing. So it's not a bad concept at all, but government's good as well. It's just the fuckers that are in it.
It's a great concept as long as everybody plays along. And that goes for most political concepts or structures. If you can get a uniform society which will agree to those terms, right? What you've said, if they exert their moral agency to not do wrong things, then anarchy can work just fine. Yeah, good luck with that. The problem is coming up with a political system which will work with real humans, the diversity of us such as it is.
It would seem to me that...
I think don't panic knows more about it. I wouldn't mind hearing your opinion on anarchy if you want to discuss, because you'll know more about it, right?
Yeah, hit you.
I'm new too, but I've been studying it for about a year. And I really didn't want to come on the hangout. It's just there's usually like a lot of voices, so it's hard to like just have a conversation. But basically, the concept of voluntary interaction between human beings doesn't have to be, and this is where the whole pipe dream aspect of it comes into play. Where you've got to overthrow and have this like anarchist idea in a nationwide or worldwide scale. So it really just starts with the existing government leaving people alone enough to where they could do what they wanted to do. And this.
Okay, so that idea of it doesn't mean no government, then, right?
Well, if you want government, you could have it, right?
Okay.
But if you don't want it, you don't have to participate.
Okay. Yeah, that's all.
But if you don't accept government, if you go for sovereignty, does that then preclude you from everything that government brings about? Can you use roads, police, hospitals, water supply?
Yeah, well, absolutely, because we pay tax. Even if you're an anarchist, you're going to still have to interact with the that kind of, you can't become an anarchist and totally, well, you could, but you'd have to find anarchistic companies that build tellies and crap like that. So you're contributing to society by paying tax, on goods and stuff like that. So you've got, and the land is ours, man. The government never built land, built roads or railways. It was us that built it, and it was us that paid for it. So we have every right to use it. Governments, you know what I mean? So there's no, to me, there's no, of course you can be a anarchist and you would still have rights, because you're paying tax on goods still. You know what I mean? You're still paying for it.
But isn't that
because you're interacting in a government.
But wouldn't the idea of being an anarchist be to not have to do those things because you feel that they're
no, but you
not
have
just?
to buy. Yeah, but you have to. You know, you still have to interact with your surrounding society. You know, you can be an anarchist and live amongst people that are ruled by the government, and you could still get on perfectly well as long as they had the same attitude that you had. You as well as them don't have a right to impose their will on anybody else. It's simple, or steal off them or anything like that. If you've got a group of people in agreement, simple, end of story. You know, quite like two tribes living together, sharing the same resources, in my opinion.
Okay, but what happens when one village gets sick one year and they need more than has been agreed upon, and it comes down to which one's going to survive?
Right, no, well, the neighbours then, well, your neighbours and the other people, because they have good morals, they've been taught good morals to help their fellow man. Doesn't matter. If you're in the government, I'll go and help that person. I'll do it. And I haven't got a problem with helping someone. And there's...
You're a good person, and I 100% believe you would help. But
yeah, but everybody's a good person, Sean. Everybody. I'm not special. Everybody has, in my opinion, has that inside them. So I'm not a good person. It's not the fact that I'm a good person. Everybody is. They've just forgot that they are. And they've been convinced that they're not. We're horrible. We're destroying the planet. Everything like that. We've been convinced of it. So there you go. We are good people. We are not. I don't think we are prone to violence. I don't think we naturally incline to violence. Myself, personally. I think that's been introduced into our psyche by people that like to control us from, how long have they been controlling us? 10,000 years, 20,000 years. There's always been somebody telling us what to do or something.
Yeah, see, it sounds too good. It's too good to be true. That's the only reason. That'd be my argument. What you're saying is I agree with. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. You know, unity, basically. The problem is that people don't think the same, and your neighbor is always, whether he's your best friend or your worst enemy, they're always going to worry. You know, they're always going to back their survival over yours. And that's
right. Okay, so here we go. Now you know about the mind control, right? Mm-hmm. And you know that we get indoctrinated as children with, you know, from the minute we are born, we are inundated with how we should be. Kids are watching television programs, are getting taught their morals, kind of thing from television. You know, the moral of the story is blah blah this and that. So they're getting taught. So instead of getting them taught things about the society the way it is and how to be greedy and blah blah. How about teaching them morals and stuff like that, and teach them actually, by the way, don't look down on people and stuff like that. Don't have television programs that teach good morals rather than shitty morals where the fat kid always gets slagged off. He does. There's always the good looking kid, the daft kid, the geeky kid, the fat kid, the female flung in, and also the obligatory black person. And no offence to black people, but that's a fact in these little kids programs. You know what I mean? And there's always the geek, the whole lot. And that's the programs kids get. They watch, they're getting shown false morals by these characters that they become emotionally tied to. But if they can
is that more to blame? Like wouldn't you say that's more to blame of the parents?
Dude, we are getting made to work so many hours and getting so stressed out we don't have time for our kids anymore, Sean. Unfortunately. In the old days, one parent could go to work and earn enough for the family. My dad was like that. My mother never worked. My dad supported the whole family. Now, two parents struggle to support a family, Sean. Right?
Yeah,
now, if things are meant to get cheaper, then technology's meant to be getting cheaper. Well, what's happened? How come that actually now there's actually two people that has to work to actually get the same comfort as you did 30 years ago, where one person did?
Our population is growing. It's going up. How can we supposed to support the whole nation with those resources if the resource is depleting because of the population?
All right, here's a question. if you go into the countryside, right? Go into the countryside in the middle of nowhere, to a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, knock on the guy's door and say to him, hey, by the way, did you know there's the world's overpopulated? And he would look around and say, well, I never knew that. You go into a city and you say, hey, by the way, the world's overpopulated, and they will go, oh yeah, I can see what you mean. It's all relative. Resources are not running out. If you believe resources are running out, you're buying into a big lie.
But then you'd have to be able to explain to the people that they don't, and then perform this any task that it doesn't. Problem is that we do know a well will dry up at some point, and just the fact that
how do you know that?
Well, just the fact that the money spent to drill and extract oils and to stay there, why wouldn't they just stay there? Why would they move to another site?
To make it look, to keep the fake thing going. Oh, we're running out of oil. We've been running out of oil since I can remember, from the 70s. Oh, we're going to run out of resources. Look, you got to remember, I'm 52 years old. I've heard all this crap that I'm hearing today. I heard this off 30 years ago, 40 years ago. In fact, I'm forgetting. I'm 54 actually. 40 years ago, I've been hearing the same stuff. One minute it was the Great Ice Age was coming in the 70s. I remember this. Oh, the Great Ice Age in the 70s. It's going to be the end of the world. Al Gore was running about in the late 80s saying the water levels are going to rise 100 feet. We're going to Manhattan's going to be underwater and stuff like that. And then here we are today, 30 years later. What have we got? The same weather as we had then.
But there's change.
Yeah, there's definitely.
Yeah, of course, it's weather, my friend. Weather changes.
But climates, but that's here. So here's the thing, you're 100% correct. But okay, so, but it's in where you live. What natural disasters do you guys have every year? For instance, hurricane seasons and stuff.
I live in the Philippines. I experience 20 to 25 hurricanes a year.
Okay, perfect. I'm in California. I live in San Diego, right on the coast. We do not experience any hurricanes. Okay, so weather is what they model and predict to know that you're going to have that many hurricanes at each season. Now, when we're talking about this climate change and global warming aspect of it, or better yet, when I'm talking about geoengineering, because this is what's going to happen if they start geoengineering, the climate then changes. What will end up happening is numerous things. In the Philippines, you're either going to get 3 times as many hurricanes each season because they're messing with the weather and the climate starts changing, or you may not get any. That sounds great, right? No hurricanes ever again.
Oh, that will be bad.
Yeah, well,
our crops will die.
Well, no, you get the rain, but you won't have hurricanes. Oh, yes. You're gonna have weather. You're gonna have bad storms, but no hurricanes. The patterns won't work. Don't work that way anymore. But California, we get 10 to 20 hurricanes every year now. Now, we can obviously learn to adapt to that. We're human. We're fucking smart. But it's not going to work like that right away. Adaptation doesn't happen instantly. A lot of shit's going to be destroyed here because we're not built. The city is not built to withstand hurricanes. We have a lot of people that live in valleys here. You don't live in valleys when you have to worry about flash floods and tsunamis. Well, some stupid cities do, but we're not talking about them. That's just the reality of it. That's the situation I'm talking about. When you say weather, I'm thinking what is it, sunny or not today? But when I'm talking about weather or climate, I'm talking about the big picture. The reason we know certain places will have hurricanes each season, tornadoes each season, snow, no snow. We don't see snow. I would say 6 inches average snow all year. And that's only in our mountains. And that's my local, not Big Bear and all that stuff. But you see what I mean? To say what you're saying about weather, and what you've been told, the weather does change, but there are big picture things that are changing that we're noticing that backs the global warming idea.
No, well, here we go then. Right, here's a reason why I don't totally buy into it, because there's scientists out there that don't believe it, and they won't publish papers on it because they'll lose their jobs. End of story. But the point is, people seem to forget about 5 years ago, right? A couple of guys were taught how they were going to fudge these figures, and these emails got discovered and they got put out into the public, and it was what they did was tantamount to fraud. It's called ClimateGate, and that was kind of swept under the table. Oh, they weren't meaning it this way, but you can go and read every single email that they wrote, and they distinctly talk about, oh my God, the figures are wrong, we better adjust these levels, how are we going to do this? And there's like about, I don't know how many emails, but them discussing exactly, and these are two scientists. One, I think they were both from London, not London, from England, somewhere. Now, when I hear things like that, right, and then I hear how it gets swept under the table, I kind of think a bit deeper. I'll do look at the bigger picture. Who is to gain by promoting global warming? And that's what you look, follow the money, and see. The funny thing is, with all these disasters, all these banking things and that, if you follow the money, every one of these organisations, it goes back to the same group of people. That is why I'm suspicious. I don't buy global warming or anything, and I've got good grounds. It's nothing to do with aliens or stupid stuff. It's deductive. This because of this, that, and that, and I'll be happy with that. If science can get away with that, I'll do that, and I'll form my opinions through logic, reason, and research. That's it. And that's there you go.
Did you actually go through those emails? Or did you just hear from somebody who...
No, I read them. Of course I read them. Yep, I read them. Okay. Absolutely. I could even get you that. I've got them on my computer. I actually downloaded them. I read everything. I might get some things wrong.
I have them. It's okay. Can you, in your own words, explain what the project that they were working on was?
No, that's very long ago. That's about 3 or 4 years ago when it happened.
So they were replacing.
When I read it, but they were talking. Wait a minute. Oh no, go on then. Right, go on. It's go on.
They were replacing an old network of buoy sensors, which were surface sensors and ship readings, with the new network, which is subsurface sensors, which are not sensitive to air temperature, but only water temperature, and are not sensitive to the temperature of the ship. They were trying to reduce error margins and noise on those readings.
Yeah, take them away from buildings and stuff like that, away from heat sources, so they were far away from heat sources as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, understood that. Yeah.
Those error margins, the heat of the ship, the heat of the sun, the heat of the industrial outflows near the sensors, was being calculated into the data. And then in the next instance, it was no longer in the data, and the error margins needed to be shifted. And the only thing that is in those emails is them discussing how they're going to align those two separate sets of data. One which is showing this line, and another one which is showing this line, because it is subsurface. And
well, I'll go back and read.
Okay, to make those two sets of data, one's before 97 and one's after 97. I don't know the exact year. I'm putting a year in like haphazardly, but to align them, we either need to add 2 degrees to this line to align, or to remove 2 degrees from this line. But there is an overlap between those two systems, and we see how we can align them.
Yeah, okay. I'll go back and read. I'll go back, and because I've got them on my computer, I'll go back over and read them again. But as I say, you know, that was one of I heard another reason why they did that, and it wasn't that.
No,
I'll look into that. Yeah, that's
I've
fine.
read-
No, I like that. I will look. I promise you. I'll read them again because I do.
I've
Yeah,
read
good looking up,
I've read
Darren. Good looking out on
multiple articles, and yes, the news cycle went berserk, and the blogosphere went berserk, and especially the conspiracy setup went berserk over. The crux of it was one email in which one scientist says, "Oh shit, I have misentered the alignment, and it's now showing that the world is actually 2 degrees cooler. I need to add 2 degrees to all of the data points in this set to show to show the increase in temperature." And
Right. That's
everybody-
yeah.
right? And that's basically, what the fuck are you doing? What do you mean you need to add 2 degrees to show that the world has warmed up 2 degrees? How can you do that, right? But yeah, when you
But
go
that's
to
an understandable. You have to. But you must admit that's an understandable reaction.
Absolutely.
Especially when the science is it's well dodgy. But just let me say, here, if it seems you're quite interested in this, do you know a channel called the Non Sequitur Show?
yeah,
Right. Go back. They actually had a geophysicist, a guy, a PhD. He taught for 30 years and stuff like that. Right. He's retired now. Go and listen to that interview. I can't remember which one it was, but he was talking exactly about that subject, the global warming, and he was talking about how it was actually wrong, right? And the thing that I knew that he was hitting close to the truth is because that Steve McRae wouldn't argue with him, right? Because the guy was qualified. The guy, he was retired. He was qualified to what he was talking about. He explained it was nothing at all to do with carbon dioxide, and he proved it. But all that Steve McRae could do was say to the guy, look, when he was arguing or putting the other side across, Steve McRae kept apologising, saying, "Oh, this is the mainstream." He knew this guy knew what he was talking about, and the guy even made a because Steve McRae, I think he mentioned, "Oh, why don't you get a paper?" He says, "I would write a paper about it, but I can assure you it'll never get published. It'll never get published because that's a gatekeeping system, peer review. If you look actually, and well, look, tell me something here, right? If I wrote a paper, right? And sent it into a publication or whatever, right? Now that would get peer reviewed, perhaps maybe by 4 scientists.
it wouldn't. It would
Yes,
get rejected by the editor.
Listen. If right, but it has to get peer reviewed, right? It'll get handed out. It'll get handed
No,
out to get it peer. Well, one second before I finish, because maybe you think I'm misunderstanding, right? So I write a paper, I send it into a publication, and then it gets sent out to get peer reviewed, right? Am I right so far?
Yeah.
Right, okay, good. Right, so it'll get out to peer review. Now, it might only go out to about 4 people. It doesn't, when they say peer review, it's not like 100, 200 scientists, right? Now, sometimes the people that are looking at the paper are sometimes not in the same field, right? But the point is, they will criticise it, they will make changes, it'll get sent to the editor will look at it, and if there's changes put to it, you will get the paper sent back to you, and you will be offered. It'll either get rejected, or they'll say, if you make these changes and correct these mistakes, or whatever, you'll get your paper published. So you're actually, that paper that you've just written with your own theories or whatever might be a bit out there, and just because it doesn't agree with maybe the standard mathematics, because there's other laws of physics out there that we don't understand, but maybe this one person that has actually hit on a subject, but because 4 guys or 5 guys don't agree with him with his mathematics, they don't agree with his mathematics, they'll tell me to change it or it won't get published. Now, if you think that's a fair system, and that's the way the system works, and I've got two people, I've got two people that have explained that to me that have had papers published.
Yeah. Oh, I've tried not to interrupt to let you say the whole piece. My experience of the peer review process differs from what you're describing. First of all, your account of, well, those scientists don't have to be in your field. They have to be. That's what peer means. It means that you're being evaluated by your equals.
Yes.
By the people who are experts in the same field.
Can verify.
I worked as an editor, and I, as an editor, am competent in saying whether it's a good article or not. But I'm not competent in saying whether the science in it is valid or not. However, when I send an article for peer review, I am not asking the reviewer to merely mark the paper and say whether it's publishable or not, right? I'm asking, the peer reviewers are assisting the author. They don't say, this is rubbish, throw it away, it doesn't pass peer review. They say, oh, look, your sample is too small for you to have error margins so low. It seems that you have misestimated your error margins based on your sample size, based on everything that we've done in this field. So that appears to be wrong. Can you explain what process you were going to? Can you disclose your data? Can you show us how you got to these conclusions? Now, if it comes up that you have used invalid methods, that you have used p-hacking, so p-hacking usually goes through, even if you use it, it'll be something that both the peer reviewers and the editor in question will go like, dude, don't do stuff like that. That's bad form, right? That's only going to bite you in the ass later. That's going to bite us all. But yeah, if you have a result, we need a publishable result, we're going to publish it. If it's unpublishable, like that happens almost never. In my life, I think I have rejected maybe 2 articles altogether simply on account of the person who has written it, like hasn't had a single consistent line of thinking. They were testing one thing and then talking about another thing and making conclusions about another thing and interjecting their own assertions without indicating that they're assertions, presenting them as though they're a conclusion. And you don't publish that not because it's wrong. You don't publish that because that's a specialist article which will be read by the scientists in the field who will laugh at you as a journal or as a magazine, as a blog, as whatever you're publishing on. Like experts who read that will laugh at you for publishing that.
Yeah, but when you write your paper, you also write in the methodology anyway. You write everything about it, how you did it.
Yeah,
conclusions. It's like a dissertation, right? Well, that's what I'm saying. So you don't. The people that are peer reviewing don't ask you what methodology they do. They look at whether it's scientifically sound or it agrees with the consensus. If it doesn't, you'll get told to make changes. You'll get told to make changes, and if you don't make the changes, you won't get it published.
You would be surprised how many articles are submitted without methodology. How many times you have to send the article back and say, look, you've been doing this for decades. You really need to write what you've been doing, right? You don't just get to write. So many people run in. That's kind of the thing that everybody keeps failing to understand. People who do science are just people. They're equally busy, not paying attention, just want to get over it, don't care about the paper that they're writing, but are just trying to satisfy the quota of
I'm sorry, guys in the chat.
being published this many times,
that I have
and they will submit
that pick that
whatever
up,
the fuck and hope that the editor won't notice.
I have to mute my mic if I type.
And also,
so
you have an equal problem on the other side of peer review, that a lot of peer reviewers don't take their job seriously, where you will have a situation where you send it to 5 people to peer review and only one of them reads it and the other 5 just send, nah, this is fine, I approve of this, you can put my name on that as though I've peer reviewed it, right? And it's obviously not fine, right? It's obvious that, so the process, the process that you've described is the ideal, perfect, imagined case with some mistakes that you've put in, but the real world process of peer review doesn't really look like that, just like any other job.
I'm glad you said that, and that's very honest of you. So that actually makes me feel even more better about what I said or what I understand. I might not be the best at explaining what I think, and admittedly, I'm repeating what 2 guys that put papers for peer review told me what exactly happened, and one of them had to appeal against it, and then he got it published, and there was a reason why it was knocked back, because one of the persons that peer reviewed it was actually doing the same study as the person that wrote the paper, and it was that guy that knocked it back, but it got appealed and he got it. So there's an example of one so-called peer reviewer maybe being a bit sneaky because he was doing the same experiment, or it was something to do with biology, I can't remember what it was, but they were studying it, and one of the guys that was asked to peer reviewed was doing the exact same study. So there's people like that in there, right? So that's why I think, well, there's a chance that goes on. So, and you've already you just admitted there that, it's not as perfect and ideal as what is described, and thank you for being honest. Yeah, that's good. That honesty is actually...
No, but that's kind of important to understand everything. Yeah, people are incompetent, and people, like all people, no people are perfect. People will fudge things because they don't have the time to do them right.
On both sides.
What conclusion are you drawing from this?
Who are you asking?
You are just the panel. What's the conclusion you draw from that? People are people. Yeah. Okay.
Before we get too far off topic, the reason why I explained that whole process, or why I gave a reply to what you were describing, is that nowhere in that process is there a moment where the institution of the publishing author gets notified about, hey, this guy is trying to publish something about this thing that we're not supposed to talk about. Right?
Oh, okay. Those things happen. Those things happen.
You're exaggerating a little bit. I never said that, and I don't expect that to happen, kind of thing. That's not where I'm going. That wasn't where I was going. But all I'm saying is,
I'm just trying to make it clear that case doesn't come about. If you fail to publish,
but you don't know that.
What?
You don't know. You can't say that 100%. You've already admitted people are flawed, and I've already made a statement there about a guy that already put in a peer-reviewed paper. It got peer-reviewed. It got knocked back. The guy appealed. As I told you that, so there's people like that within that, okay?
Yeah, that happens. What conclusion are you trying to draw from that?
As I've said,
is it hard? Is it a hard question to ask? What's the problem?
I don't know who you're asking and what conclusion.
I'm asking the panel or you. Okay. People are people, and they do things that are dumb, and sometimes they do things they're not supposed to do. What conclusion am I supposed to draw from these stories that you're telling?
The conclusion that I draw from my experience with publication is that people are far too incompetent to maintain some big charade or conspiracy in such an open and disjointed process.
Oh, okay. So basically, people, it's really, it requires much more competence to maintain a conspiracy, and because of this, okay, that makes sense to me. That sounds like a relatively reasonable conclusion.
What happens if they knew? What happens if they knew they would lose their job? Imagine you had a job, right? And you were told, by the way, if you say this, you're going to lose your job. Now you've got a mortgage, 2 kids, and all that. What would you do?
You're not going to lose your job if you publish.
No, I never said that. Excuse me. Shush.
That's exactly what you said.
I asked you. Well, I didn't ask you whether you would. I said, what would happen if you had a job, right? And you were told you're not allowed to talk about something, or you'll lose your job. You've got a wife, 2 kids, college or university or whatever. What would you do? You personally, what would you do? Would you stick with the job, or would you jack it in?
You're basically begging the question. You're assuming that there's a conspiracy in order to prove that there's a conspiracy.
Brenda, I'm not talking to you. What
but that's what you're doing. You're assuming that there's a conspiracy.
No, I'm actually not. I'm asking a question.
Yeah, that's exactly what you said.
I know plenty of people. I know plenty of people that have had their jobs threatened.
Yeah, I don't believe it's. I don't believe
if they
it's
said anything.
assuming.
But anyway, sorry.
I don't think it's assuming at all.
Go, sir.
No, because
if you have an outrageous claim and you have the methodology and the data to prove it, you need to manifest rigor. The people that I have had the experience of working with, where the cases where I rejected an article and sent it back to the author and said, "Fuck you, I'm not going to publish. I'm not even going to send it to peer review," right? Is the case where the guy is not writing a brilliant paper on a topic that I don't want to publish. He's writing a shitty paper. He is angry. He's saying
You've
that.
never answered my question. Answer my question. I asked you what you would do.
Your question assumed
I was asking you a question.
Assumed a conspiracy to cover up. Your question assumes a conspiracy to cover up things.
Okay. So let us assume there's that you got approached like that. What would you do? Just answer the question. It's just, would you keep your job? If your livelihood got threatened.
Hey Barney, what if somebody put a gun to your head and said you got a
guys,
somebody put a gun to your head? What if somebody put a gun to your head?
I don't mind answering loaded questions. Yes, if my boss came up to me and said, don't publish any articles about, I don't know, the prototype model in JavaScript, I would say, are you sure that's kind of our job to publish? And if he said, yes, if you do that, you're going to get fired, I would say, okay, that's kind of your choice. I disagree with it, but fine, you're the boss.
There you go then. Right, fine.
Yeah, that doesn't prove anything, though, Ali.
No. Exactly.
No, it doesn't. Hey, listen.
Exactly.
I wasn't. Hey, listen. I wasn't. Look.
But that wouldn't stop me from writing. But that wouldn't stop me from writing about the prototype model in JavaScript, publishing it on my blog, sharing it with the people in the community, letting people that I know about what I'm working on, and sharing the information, despite my publication having the policy of not publishing that certain type of article. Ultimately, it would be a loss for that journal, because if that is relevant information, if that is real information, then the article who would be willing to publish that, assuming that it's a well-written, well-researched, well-structured article, that journal would definitely have a huge boost and a huge benefit from that. The reason why I would disagree with my lead editor about it is because I would think that he was an idiot on the business side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fallacious to assume that there is instructions coming from above for people to suppress research and then to use the lack of research about something that you believe has been suppressed as evidence for that suppression. That's begging the question. That's fallacious.
Oh, shut up.
How you doing, Barney?
Well,
Hi, Pete, how you doing, mate? How you doing,
Not too
Pete?
bad.
What's up, Pete?
I'm still not an agent, but you're welcome to think I am.
It's
but-
okay. We don't know who's who in this arena, right? So we'll just we'll carry on. But Barney, are you making the point that it would take too much effort and it's too big a conspiracy for people to stay quiet? Are you saying that you couldn't possibly think of any reason or any motivation for the greater conspiracy? Is that your point?
In essence, yes, but it's much. I think it's much more than that. I think that the greater conspiracy would have to involve so many perfectly organized structures without flaw that it's just unimaginable when you look at the case of 3 people working together fail 6 different times in the process of doing the normal regular thing.
Yeah,
Well,
conspiracy-
my answer to that would be this is what I think is happening. They've been let in on the secret. And nothing as it appears, and that includes life, the whole experience we're having here. And this is why I say people like Brenda here will come back with seemingly infinite patience and rehash the same arguments again and again, and her colleagues or his colleagues as well, whatever. I think they're let in on the secret. They're privy to information that us ordinary Joe Soaps are not privy to. You know, that's what I think.
Well, that would be. You have no evidence for that, though.
That's what I think, though, Brenda. I mean, I have no evidence. Exactly, I can't prove anything. You never give us a chance to be able to prove anything. You remain a faceless and a nameless character.
Go ahead.
No, but I'm saying that, like, I mean, at least if you went on camera and you put yourself out there and said, look, I'm coming from an honest point of view, then I can sort of combat you on a sense or another. But I can't do that. We're dealing with faceless characters for the most part.
Dude, this. I give my first and last. This is my legal name. This is my first and last legal name. I'm not hiding. What are you talking about?
I don't think so, Brenda. I definitely don't think so.
Anyway, Pete, get back to the conspiracy stuff. This is not about Brenda or whether she's an agent. Let's talk about the conspiracy stuff.
Well, that is a conspiracy. That is a conspiracy, isn't it, Pete? It is a conspiracy, right?
Yeah, I say you're in on the greater secret. I think there's a great secret there that you're all made privy to, whether that's...
Brenda's just a distraction.
Your affiliations with secret societies or whatever route you took.
Those are your beliefs. Those are your beliefs, people. You have no evidence. You have no evidence for your beliefs. They're just generated out here.
That would be a possible or a plausible reason, which would keep people from talking about it.
It's possible, right? It's possible, but there's no evidence. You have no evidence.
There's no evidence, just like there's no evidence for a spinning ball Earth beneath our feet, right?
It's much more. It's much more than it's possible, but there is no evidence. There is clear evidence about human incompetence, right? If you've worked with people, if you've worked in corporate teams, you know how many mistakes happen. You know that you go out and have a cigarette with random people. Just to fully disclose my background, because I've stepped out and said that I've edited and approved articles. I'm a programmer. I edited a blog and a magazine for a company that I worked for as an editor, which was a publisher. Prior to that, I've worked in the media on television as a developer, and then later a manager for the news page of that TV channel. And I talk to journalists. There are definitely conspiracies. There are definitely spins that are being put on by editors, by chief editors, by lead information programming
Absolutely.
managers, right? But those things aren't exactly secret. Those things are like, if you go to that building and step in front of it and have a cigarette with the random person there, you will find out half of the secrets inside there.
So
With
Barney,
that-
you must be
with-
aware of
with
then
things
you have
being
insider.
that things being that leaky and that full of holes and that kind of thinly veiled of like
What
the
about
editor
when-
going,
wait,
oh,
wait a
I don't
minute.
want to put this spin on it. I want to put this spin. I don't want this guy to be looked upon that charitably. I don't think we'll hit our audience if we align with
What
the
about when
murder
they
so
developed
much.
a
We need-
nuclear bomb? Barney, what happened when they developed a nuclear bomb? How many people were involved in that and how many people knew about it?
It was wartime.
How many people were involved in that and how many people knew about it?
Yeah, and do you know what they had to do to keep the Manhattan Project secret?
How many people?
And how much of it?
They took them off
I know
to a
all about the Manhattan
They
Project.
built,
Yeah, they took them off to a secret
they built
site.
an entire different city and put it with.
So there you go.
separated it with
There
wire
you
fence.
go.
Yeah.
There was 20,000 people. 20,000 people knew a secret, and nobody else knew about it.
Yeah, and they were
There's
completely
huge-
isolated. They were completely
You can say,
isolated
you can
from
look,
society.
look.
But that's
you
true.
Can
They
say
were
about,
isolated.
You can talk about isolation and give all these
Well,
excuses.
that's what was necessary.
The fact is,
Yes,
the fact
and
is,
you're saying,
the
and you're
fact
saying that
is,
it's
wait a
happening on
minute.
a much grander
The
scale.
fact is, the fact is that happened.
Because if you're talking over each other, either one of you guys are even being hurt. Like it gets all.
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
that's-
Sean. But you've got to
fine.
sympathise a bit with me, Sean.
Oh, no,
Now
I'm
you've
just
got to
saying,
admit, I
General.
made a
Yes.
statement.
You do
I
nothing
made a
but talk
statement.
over people, Ali.
No,
Directed at
what? No, I'm just not about
That's
the
all you
question.
ever do is just over talk
I'm
people.
just,
You're the
Sean,
most
I was going to
disrespectful
say,
person
The
around.
point is,
I was gonna say-
if there's sufficient import, right, then people will keep a secret, and I think this ties
Yeah.
into the greater
Well, there-
story here.
That's very true.
Oh, there's another problem. There's the problem that there are some things you can't keep a secret. It's not possible to keep secret.
Let me ask Barney there, because you have, and I won't talk about 9/11 specifically. I won't talk about it at all. But other media hoaxes. Do you hold that there's no such thing as media hoaxes, or I mean, is this just a flat Earth thing? It seems to me that all the ball supporters in unison will deny even obvious media
No, here's the
hoaxes. I
thing.
mean,
I believe 100% that the media runs a narrative. In some cases, they're getting scripts to what to say.
yeah.
The issue I have with that, because I think there's quite a few in the incident that we will not discuss, Pete, and I do appreciate that on a personal level. Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's the fact that every event is a hoax, and you may not think every event is a hoax, but flat Earth, there's a large group of people that every single event is a hoax, which would mean no one ever gets shot. Planes don't go down, things don't blow up. It's like, it's a certain point, your case of a conspiracy gets thrown away because it goes too far.
Well,
Yeah,
we
but
know,
it's
for example, there's
examining
been.
the evidence presented. I mean, it's based on a case by case
Yeah.
basis. You know.
We know, for instance, that there's been a conspiracy to keep the certain parts of the public through certain media outlets to keep knowledge of global warming from getting out, because they don't want, because they're funded by billionaires who would be affected by government policies to address global warming, and so they influence the media to confuse and distort the facts about global warming, the truth of global warming, from people believing it. So that's a media hoax that is real.
No, but so what about media hoax stories, Brenda? Fake shootings passed off as real, for instance. You don't.
No,
have you
you'd have to
investigated
have-
all of these? Have you
You would
investigated
have
these
to have.
possibilities?
You would have to have evidence.
Oh, there's
Well,
loads
Pete-
of evidence collated.
Pete, here's one for you. Now you'll know this. You're over in that neck of the woods, over there. If you remember, I think it was just about a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago, inside a shopping centre, right? There was like there was gunshots or something like that, and it all kicked off, right? And oh, it was a shooting and all this. It was in the newspapers. The next day it came out, it was the police, and they were doing an exercise, and they never told anybody about it. So anybody that is in doubt that government organisation have like drills in public areas. Now you've got to remember, the public never knew about. There was kids. There was kids running about screaming, people in fear of their lives, right? Because the police decided to hold an exercise without telling the public. So you can say what you like about your false flags and stuff like that, but there's evidence that they do that.
And this is all too common as well. This is all too common. With 7/7, the London bombing.
Oh my God, man! It was like.
Yeah, the guy that wasn't though.
Hang on, Brenda.
Yeah, but hang on.
There was a guy came on. There was a guy came on at 9 o'clock. I watched this live on about 9:10 in the morning. A guy, I don't know who the hell he was. He was for this company or whatever, crisis management company, right?
Yeah.
And
Peter
he
Power.
comes on the telly at about 9:10, just after the bombs came out. He said, "Oh, it was so funny because we were actually running an exercise which involved 3 trains, a bus, blowing up, terrorists getting attacked. The same thing happened on 9/11. NORAD, they were out in the middle of the Atlantic flying about. The Madrid bombing, the special force police.
Yeah, we're not. Ali,
they were doing an exercise.
9/11 is forbidden.
We're not going to talk about 9/11. It's my.
It's
my personal request.
Yep, but it was a part of the point I'm making. It was the bigger point. Madrid bombings as well. The police were having an exercise. This is all documented.
And so many
Don't
others.
you at least get a bit suspicious about that?
Yeah.
I do.
Well, the fact that there was an exercise doesn't show that it was a fake.
Okay, but Brenda, here's something that because I've seen these and I've researched it, and matter of fact, I have it pulled up. Just crisis actor, we know it is real. I mean, it's not.
No, we don't. No, you don't know that it's real.
Well, I'm happy you said that. I'm happy you said that.
No, you don't know it's real.
Brenda, please.
You have no proof.
Where's your critical mind, Brenda? Where's your critical mind? You're after the truth.
I'm using it right now. I'm using it right now.
Will you not know? Will you not know? Let's just take 7/7 for instance. And Ali is right.
There
we go.
Listen to me.
Off into La La Land.
No, stop.
No, see, La La Land. When it's sorry,
Brenda,
go on.
I want you to understand something. Again, I don't think these things without looking into them. I want you to understand.
Right.
You do not understand what you're talking about. So I don't act like you do if you haven't looked into it yourself. Because, for one, this is a real thing, and I'm going to show you right now. Just so you understand, I didn't go to this website because I think Wikipedia is the source. No, this is a good starting point. This is a good place to understand what you're talking about. So we're talking about is a trained actor, role player, volunteer, or other persons engaged to portray a disaster victim during emergency drills to train first responders such as police. Now understand this.
I understand
not
that.
only is it a real job, real thing, there are companies that all they do is hire crisis actors for situations. Now, why is it so far-fetched to you to believe that they can possibly be hired to be interviewed after an incident? Because if a news agency goes down to an incident and there's no one to talk to, they don't know what happened. If they have someone that was involved in it or there, then they can have them breaking news. They will hire these people for that reason. Now, I'm not sure if you remember when you were in school, there was a kid.
Well, I can give you a reason why they wouldn't do that.
Okay, go ahead.
Because the consequences would be terrible.
It's all legal, Brenda, and above board. News is
it's not legal. No, that would be fraud. That would be fraud. That would be fraud.
You exemplify. Yes, of course it is fraud. They
could potentially lose their broadcast license.
Brenda, one question.
If they portray staged falsehood as news,
can I ask one question?
Yes, there would be huge blowback.
Okay.
One question, Brenda. One question, Brenda. Has the government ever been found to have been colluding or fraud,
conspiring against the public?
Thank you, Barney.
Sure.
Okay, so do not say it would be unreasonable for a newscast to do that because, for one, they've already been caught lying in live broadcasts. They've already been caught running.
I don't know that that's true.
Okay, so
I don't know. For instance, Sean, a lot of the things that you assume to be facts, I don't know to be true. This isn't an area.
You haven't researched it, Brenda.
Excuse me. This isn't an area I've done any work on because I don't.
Why don't you keep your mouth shut then and say you don't know?
Just shut up.
How about you just keep your fucking mouth shut?
Absolutely, hang on, Pete.
Let me fucking talk.
Brenda,
Let me finish a fucking sentence.
Right. Brenda, don't shut up. I want you
Jesus
to be like you are.
Christ.
So, because if you hadn't and you didn't care or we didn't talk about this, then you wouldn't now have an opportunity to look into it so you can understand where people are coming from. Because if you did understand that this is a real thing, where they do hire people for these interviews and these things can be falsified.
Yes.
But it would change your narrative on it though, right? And not change everything. But
no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't change my narrative.
Okay, well, I'm pretty,
I worked,
you asked
can
me
I talk?
to prove it to you. You're looking at right now is a website that hires crisis actors. And I'm going to tell you right now.
Yes.
1,000%. The media hires crisis actors to be interviewed so they can have the breaking news. Do you not understand
Who cares,
that?
Brenda? Who cares? We care, right? We want to know if our children are being lied to. We want to know if we're all being lied to. And fake stories are being passed off as real. Do you not care about that, Brenda?
If you don't care, then
faceless? Is that why you're nameless and faceless?
I've worked.
Who cares?
Moderation,
Pete, let her talk.
I've worked in corporate America. I worked for a medical clinic, and I participated in creating a training film in which I portrayed somebody who had been wounded because I worked in a medical facility and knew it. So I just laid on a gurney and pretended to be injured.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what they do.
He's lying.
Yes.
Lying.
No, I actually did this. I actually did that.
Listen to me.
So the point is, so what? Corporations need to do this. You need your hospital personnel to be trained in the eventuality of a crisis. It's perfectly reasonable.
Okay, now Brenda,
you need them to be trained.
Okay, for that event, how much do you think that your hospital put into it? The money put into that.
Well, this was a good 30 years ago, maybe even longer. So it was really a low budget thing. I mean, they just took a bunch of us schlubs, and I was just a poor working stiff. I wasn't anybody. And they just said, come over here, lay on this gurney. And there's some guy running around with a video camera. It was a low budget production thing. Okay. I suppose in the years since it's gotten more sophisticated.
Okay, so you can
admit
it
doesn't change. It doesn't change the fact that a hospital needs to be.
Can I please talk, please? It does change it because here's the thing.
No,
you
it
just
doesn't.
described exactly what a low budget, no actors event would look like. So would you say that if that person showed that tape to the American public, anybody would believe it?
I don't know. I never saw the final thing.
Okay,
it was a couple of hours out of my time that I didn't have to work, and I was glad for it.
But you said you sucked, and you said it was low budget, so it probably would not convince the world or the
I don't
public.
know.
But here's the thing.
Maybe.
Now, imagine if that same event was filmed with a great camera and was budgeted in the millions. Maybe it would be a lot more believable. Actors that really could portray the situation. I mean, you don't think that'd be believable? I mean, isn't a good isn't a good movie a movie that sucks you into believing it?
Yeah, but emergency personnel, hospital personnel, first responders, the police, the EMTs, all these people need to train, and they need to train at regular times, at all times, because because you're in the job doesn't mean that your skills deteriorate after time. So you need to keep up on these things.
I completely understand.
So I don't see the connection. There's no connection between EMT and police need to train in order to stay sharp, and therefore all the news reports of shootings are fake.
No,
there's no connection there.
Stop.
There's no connection there.
Here's the connection. Here it is right now. We know for a fact that the media has hired crisis actors for interviews to have the quote unquote breaking news. Done. Here's the thing. So
I don't believe you.
Okay,
This is my critical thinking skill kicking
Brenda,
in charge.
Brenda,
I don't believe you.
I let you talk.
I don't believe you.
Okay, perfect.
Brenda.
Here's the thing. You've already stated once. You have not put any effort into actually researching what we're talking about.
Right. So I'm a skeptic. I'm a skeptic. I subscribe to Skeptic magazine. I've subscribed to our skepticism on Reddit. And I watch. I am familiar with Shermer and some of the others, Syscop and some of the other skeptical blogs out there. It's been something I've been interested in for years. So give me your best evidence that major incidences of loss of life, Brenda, have been completely faked by the media.
Brenda,
where's your evidence?
Brenda.
Produce your evidence. Produce it now.
Go research it for yourself.
No, that's not an answer.
You want to know why it is an answer? Because you have no knowledge of what you're talking about. So why would you? No, go research it. So when you come back, you can understand that the media has been caught using crisis actors. It has been known for years. Okay,
bullshit.
See,
I don't believe you.
Okay, perfect. Then guess what? You're not interested in truth. You're interested in your own narrative.
No. He shouldn't be tolerated. Simple as that. He's a liar.
I am. I can. I don't have to prove it.
So
you have to prove it. You're the one claiming.
I'm not here
You're
to
the
prove
one
anything.
claiming that there are major loss of life incidences, major terrorist events, major tragedies in which people have lost life that have been completely faked. That have been completely faked by the media.
I asked you if it is possible. I asked you or I said to you, why isn't it something you would put in your brain if you know that the media does it and you know that the incidents that have happened, there have been things that you have to look at to go, what? Wait, well, that doesn't look right.
I don't believe. I don't believe.
Look,
I don't believe in a single incident. I don't believe in a single incident.
Ready for this? Let me explain something to you. I don't believe that 99. Better yet, I believe maybe of the 1,000 hoaxes that I've heard about around, one of them was probably a hoax. So understand that I'm not trying to convince you that all these events.
Give me your best evidence for your best hoax. What is it?
I don't have that. I couldn't prove it to nobody.
You don't have it.
Because I did not
don't fucking believe a single thing you say.
Oh, the fuck. Well,
I didn't tell you
listen, I didn't tell you that I had all the answers, and I didn't tell you
Brenda,
I can convince
behave
anybody.
yourself.
This is called
You're a disgusting piece of work, Brenda. Do you know that?
This is what this is, a conversation, Brenda. It's not prove it or shut the fuck up. It's called a conversation. Now,
what's your evidence? What is it?
I'll say this, and I say it all the time. I am not here to prove shit to nobody. I'm here to learn shit. And if I know something or I believe I know something, I say it. Now, Brenda, you in firsthand should know damn well that that's exactly how it works because I told you something a couple months ago, and what ended up happening? I was wrong. And what did I fucking do, Brenda? What did I do? Did I not apologize to you?
Sure.
So do not come on here acting like I am trying to tell you exactly how everything is and shut the fuck up and listen, because that's not how I work. I'm not saying, I don't think... Like
I'm just asking for the evidence. I just want the evidence to prove the claim, or to even give me a reasonable inference as to why I ought to consider it possible.
This is what I suggest.
What is the evidence?
I suggest you end the hangout, you go back to the watch page, turn the volume up, and just hang out and listen. Anything you don't believe or anything you believe could be a possibility, look into it and come up with your own reasonable reason for having your objective views on those. Because you telling me that you don't look into you telling me you don't look into the crisis actor and the media situation.
John, I did those things. Again, when I first got onto the internet. I did those things. I looked up UFOs. I looked up UFOs. I looked up 9/11. I looked up a number of prominent events.
What would be the biggest event
all
that
of them
you looked into
fail.
the most?
All of them, the proponents for the conspiracy failed
How much time do you put into
make
looking
their
into
case,
it?
and the people debunking it had the better, logical, rational
Answer
case.
the question.
This is turning into way too much of a conversation about a conversation. Can we stop and get back to arguments for a bit?
Hang on. Brenda, how much time do you put into that research? Hang on. How much time? What's the longest amount of research into one event have you? I know, Barney, but well, this needs to be said. How much time did you put into it?
I don't know. I didn't keep
Guesstimate.
track.
An
It was
hour?
sort of like
10 minutes?
no, it was over a period of weeks and months.
Okay, so in every situation you just named, because you just said,
liar.
you already said you don't research, you never researched the crisis actor thing because you didn't care. You've already said that.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You've noticed-
And now he
right.
spend weeks or months. He spend
Exactly.
weeks or
And
months.
because
This is nonsense. We're doing a straight up liar.
can I
No one-
reply?
okay,
What do you do with
Can I-
straight up liars? You don't
can
I
fucking deal with
reply?
them.
Pete, I'm gonna let you say something.
Can I
Brenda's
reply?
just derailed
Brenda,
this.
I will
Can
let
I
you talk.
reply?
Stand this
Hang
hang
on.
out, man.
Now we know why Brenda won't go on camera. Simple as that.
Pete, all right, everyone, stop! Don't say anything. I'm done. You're right, Barney. This is how it's going to end. Brenda, you are not. No one is here on this panel. No one has ever been here to prove to Brenda anything. Okay, so don't come on here going prove it or shut up. This is not the panel for it. Second,
Good.
everyone is right. We are fucking done having this conversation because you're not going to change your view, and I'm not going to change my view. So again.
That's a lie. That's a lie. If you give me the evidence, I'll change my mind.
I'll post you evidence, Brenda, if you want.
Okay, you can ask for evidence, but stop with the proof and stop with the I don't want to hear it because this is a discussion we were having. We were all
Here,
put it this
let me.
me and
Can I
fucking-
explain
no,
something
no,
to you?
Stop.
You're
Me
triggered.
and I am very. I get triggered all the time. I tell people
Yeah.
I get triggered fast, easily
Yeah.
too.
Can I
And if
explain
me and
something?
Pete can be on a panel for more than 10 minutes and not have been rude to each other once. Anything's possible. So try me, Brenda. Relax.
My point is that when I first got onto the internet, I was really interested in like UFOs and other phenomena that I thought were weird and strange and bizarre. I looked into those things. I found out that that there was no evidence. Some of the people were lying and some not.
Okay.
When it came to crisis acting, I had already reached my conclusion that there's a lot of trolls out there, a lot of people who have are paranoid conspiracy theorists who are incapable of coming to rational conclusions
Just listen to liars.
based on
It's
evidence.
disgusting.
Based on evidence, people who are incapable of coming to common sense, rational conclusions based on the evidence. And that is why I dismiss crisis actors, because it's the same group of people. It's the same group of people who are paranoid and conspiracy
this?
theorists,
How about
and
Brenda?
I have no respect
How
for
about
them.
this, Brenda?
But if you
And I
want
get
my
muted because
respect,
I
How about this? How about
show
this,
me,
Brenda? What I'll
show
do-
me the
Okay,
evidence.
what
Show
I'll
me
do-
the
What I'll do
evidence.
for you is I swear I'll do a stream for just you and I to be on the Hangout, no one else, and I will show you why I believe the things that I believe are hoaxes and or false flags are the reasons I believe. I will present
can you
that.
just
I will present that evidence.
name-
I will present
name
that.
one thing?
No, I
Name
will
one
present,
thing so I can go look at. Name
I-
one
I
thing
will.
so I can go
Okay,
look it up.
7-7. Look at 7-7 London bombing.
No, okay, don't do that.
I'm
Don't
not
do that.
going
I don't
to
do that number
because I
thing.
already know the facts about that, and you're full of
Right.
shit.
So let me, Sean,
Here's a
give
good
me
one. Here's a good
20
one.
seconds.
Pearl
This will arouse your suspicion
Harbor.
anyway.
let's
As Ali
hear
said,
from the relatively sane
as Ali
Sean.
said,
Hang on, Pearl Harbor. That one.
right. Can I give me 20 seconds without muting me, please? As
Pearl
Ali
Harbor?
said, this should arouse your suspicion immediately that on the same day of the 7/7 London bombings, there was drills and exercises involving 800 people, I think it was said, that incorporated exactly the same scenario that later turned out to be real in exactly the same fucking tube stations. When you look at the
I know
images of
nothing
the
about that.
victims or the injured, they all look off. They all look like a crisis actor scenario. So this should cause suspicion in itself, right?
Brenda,
I don't trust people who drink their own piss.
Brenda, stop.
There you go. You're a
Yeah,
disgusting
that doesn't-
coward, Brenda.
Brenda.
I don't.
Again,
I
will
don't.
say, Brenda, I
You're
said
a
it again.
disgusting
I'm gonna say
coward,
it.
and you shouldn't be
Pete,
tolerated, and that's why
stop.
you don't show
Pete,
your face.
Stop. No, because some people just don't want to show their damn face. I don't think that has anything to do with it. Brenda, again,
I
don't
don't
wanna
liar,
get-
Sean.
I don't
You're
wanna
paid
get-
to do what they do.
Pete, stop. Brenda, I will do a separate stream, but I have collectively heard and seen on this panel and in the chat, everyone's kind of done with it. We need to go back to a conversation. This is not the Brenda
Sure.
Trigger Hour, okay? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Let's just
Well, apparently I'm the only it seems to me I'm the only skeptic. Maybe
Because you
Barney
want
is a skeptic. I don't know.
Right now,
Can
and
I
others
ask
are
a
willing to
question?
hear others.
Can I ask a
And I
question?
might drink my urine, Brenda, but you're a man who thinks they're a woman, right? What do you put in your
There we go.
Pete,
Then we're
stop.
equal.
Pete,
Then we're
Pete,
equal.
Stop, man. No more personal. Period. Next.
Well, that was personal against
this
me,
ain't-
Sean,
check
right?
this. Check this out. This is not Jose's. This is not blah blah blahs. I will boot your ass if I think you can't keep it from getting personal. Because in that sense,
Well, can you comment on this personal comment Brenda made about me?
I apologize,
You both need to
Pete.
fucking stop because you both can get catty and you both know it. So stop. I want to have a discussion now.
How does
triggered.
crisis actors
Period.
prove flat Earth? That's
They
what I wanted to
don't.
ask.
Nothing at all.
They don't.
have
They
nothing to do
don't.
with flat Earth. It does not
Come
prove
on.
it. It does not prove
I
the
have
globe.
something. I have something.
That's my fault
relevant
for
about,
bringing Barney into it. All right.
crisis actors and so a context in which a crisis actor, in which I can see a crisis actor happening, or a thing that I know that happens is that, let's say there is a murder or there is a car crash or there is some kind of newsworthy
Thank you. I appreciate
event.
that so
A
very
reporter
much.
will go out into the scene, will find a person there, will ask him, "Hey, have you seen something?" No. Well, if I give you $100, have you seen something? Well, yeah, of course I have. Okay, tell me about it, right? And both the reporter and the person are fully aware that they're lying, and usually even the editor will know that they're lying, and they will do that. That is the context of we're willing to do this to be the first one to get the story. Like, we've been on location, we found a person who was on location, therefore nobody can blame us if he said, yes, I've seen it and told us a story. We've just reported on it.
The media are complicit in all of this, Barney. This is very naive of you at the
I think that
least,
sounds
right?
highly unethical and illegal.
Oh, absolutely. No, it's not illegal.
So, let me just say, isn't it funny that nearly all ball adherers, right, will deny fake news? All of them.
Pete,
Nearly all of them, to the man.
Shut up, Pete. No, we won't. John's a baller, and he's not denying it. What the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Don't you listen?
He just said one in 1,000 is a hoax, right?
Yeah. But here's the thing: that there's millions of events that happen, but all the ones that hit the media cannot always be a hoax. And if you go back, I guarantee you, and I even do a compilation of this, I guarantee you, I can go back in every event and find at least 5 videos or uploads from flat earthers or in this community of conspiracy stuff that will think every single one is a hoax and believe they got the proof for it and really don't have anything. And I think it's really important that you do, because
right.
like I said,
Truth Forum is a forum that specializes in media fakery investigation, in-depth investigation by many different contributors. Have you ever looked there, Sean?
I haven't, and I will. I swear.
There you go. There you go. Here's the
thing. I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I don't go on that whole like holograms and this and that. Like, I really need something to keep on to. So what happens for me is that I'm looking for evidence for myself, but I'm also having to dodge and dive through conversations because 10 minutes before I got there, someone's talking about how aliens abducted them and blew them, and then they had a cow fucking talk Swahili and shit, and it doesn't help my case at all.
This is nonsense talk, Sean. You know it well,
on that part.
Sean, you're the host. I ask you for the courtesy of letting me.
Sounds like a poem Pete Shea wrote.
But that's
But the flat Earth conspiracy is different than any other conspiracy.
There's no back.
Yes, because we can ask basic questions about our reality ourselves, and we can answer them ourselves.
Once again, Sean, as a host, can I ask you for the courtesy of letting me finish the point?
You have the floor.
Thank you. So that works on very small scales, on fodder news, on filler news. I don't see how it could possibly work on large multi-channel news that involves a bunch of people. Like, you will not get in the scenario that I've described, you will not get 3 different TV houses interviewing the same crisis actor about the same event,
Barney,
on those circumstances.
Sir, there's a problem with that.
They're in the secret. They're all in the secret, Barney.
Hang on. It's been.
I've worked. Let me just finish the point. There is an argument there that I think will demonstrate why it cannot be. Each of those companies is in it for the money. It is in it for having the biggest news of the day.
100%.
For each of those companies, the other company is competition that they want to bring down because they're competing for the same market.
Okay.
Having the news of the other company doing that is a much greater news in each of those cases than reporting than just reporting on the fake.
Can I ready for this? Hang on. Here's the thing. Okay, so if there are 10 major publications, ABCs, BBC, right? What if I told, okay, I don't know about the BBC, take that off the list, but all the American ones, what if I told you that of those 10, they were owned in combination by only 2 or 3 people?
Exactly, man.
Here's what
Exactly. Barney's argument from
here's what I've seen.
doesn't wash.
Pete, for a second, here's what I've seen. I've seen multiple different news stations tell the same story the same exact way with the same exact vocabulary. I've seen 2 different government officials give the same speech about 9/11. So these things are scripted, narrated.
No, they're just lazy. Why? Because
No.
Wait,
because it's unethical for a journalist
game away, Barney.
to not just report on the news and instead to present a narrative. And then if all the journalists are presenting the same narrative, there's no news anymore.
Because for every research journalist that goes out in the field and looks for stories, you have 3 of them sitting at the computer, just looking at not anchors, journalists looking at the Reuters feed and just scrolling through what Reuters and AP are putting out and saying, "Oh, that's the news," and taking the text as they've received it and then broadcasting it out.
Barney, have you
because
they're all affiliated at the top levels.
It's just proof that media is just like the weather, man.
Exactly, they're all affiliated at the top levels, Barney, and you're being naive and a bit transparent, actually.
I can actually give you.
No, don't go down there, Pete. Don't go down there, Barney.
Hang on.
Do you believe?
Hang on.
Barney,
I can give you proof that the weather departments
do you believe?
Scripted by Noah.
1 minute, Sean. Sorry, Barney. Do you believe everything you see on the news?
No.
All right, fair enough. Good stuff.
But you don't seem to have done the necessary investigation.
All those things that
Let me have a just channel Q.
He's honest. He's an honest dude. Don't go down that road that you think he's an agent because he speaks in a certain way.
It's a laugh of the Boston bombing.
Barney's a paid agent.
Well, never mind that.
Move on then.
Never mind that. I don't care. He's credible to me. He seems an honest enough dude. Anyway.
All right, fair enough. Move on then. Move on to the next topic.
No, but
would you
attack
assume me to believe everything that they say?
No,
This is very naive, though. This is very naive. It's a fake news is a new issue.
Yeah, but people
I mean, there's so many fake news stories going back to JFK, going back to.
Pete, I don't think it's a new issue because it's fake news that caused, part of the problem when we had the market crash.
What about the Gulf of Tonkin? The Gulf of Tonkin is an admitted fake news story. So what's going on there?
Well, that's not just a fake news story. That's actually a fake government official.
Yeah, exactly. That started the Vietnamese War, where apparently thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people died.
Stay with the media.
That's as it's
Stay with the
stated.
media because it's going to be easier for someone who doesn't believe this is something that's happening or just hearing about it for the first time. You can't go Gulf of Tonkin and they're going to be able to just figure it out.
I know, man, but you get sick of talking to liars, right? You get sick of talking to people you know are lying to you.
Okay, but here's the thing.
So Sean G, if they fake the news, what makes you think that they wouldn't fake they wouldn't fake the shape of the Earth?
Exactly.
Okay,
Good point.
I'm going to answer that question. Let me answer that. Yeah, because they couldn't fake the shape of the Earth, guys. Literally, you can figure out what the shape of the Earth is all by yourself. If you just
how can you do that, kid?
No, you can't.
I can answer that.
Yet every time we look for curvature, we can't find it. Every time we look for Earth moving beneath us, we can't
find
find it.
obstruction due to curvature every single fucking time you look for it.
Obstruction, but what's causing the obstruction?
Right, and I'm telling you, that is your evidence of curvature.
You know well the Earth is flat and
You need more people.
They could not possibly fake the shape.
Hang on, Pete. Let Chris
Shut
talk.
up,
He's been
Babette.
for a minute.
Did you guys know that grass isn't really green? It's purple. It's a government conspiracy.
Purple haze, yeah.
Brenda, that doesn't really help though, and you know that by now. You're a veteran here.
It's the government.
No, you're on this bully tour, Brenda, where you're trying to give everybody a piece of what, but.
Yeah, not here, Brenda.
But you're in on the secret channel, Q, aren't you? In the secret, as is Brenda.
Please, come on.
You're in on the secret,
so
aren't you?
If they can lie to us about what they're showing us on TV, they can definitely lie.
I don't know any of Brenda's secrets.
And they did.
For the record.
They already did.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was
Well,
just clarifying my point. I was just saying, like, if they can lie to us on the news, then they can definitely lie to us about the nature of reality, and they already did.
No,
Exactly.
you can't lie about reality.
There's definitely.
You can't lie about reality because reality is real.
Okay, Brenda.
No, you can't.
Brenda,
Yeah, you can.
why is there religion?
No, you can't.
Why is there religion, Brenda?
Because people like you feel like
No,
in
you
order to
can't lie about
understand
reality.
reality, all you need to do is pick up
Yeah.
a book and
Oh,
read.
wait a minute. No, you're right.
No.
You can lie about
That's not how
reality.
it works.
The grass is green is a government conspiracy. That's right.
Brenda, you
This
really believe
is why
that
you shouldn't
people-
tolerate
do you
Brenda
believe
at all.
Yeah,
everything
because
you're
you're
saying-
talking nonsense.
You know, it's
Yeah.
not as
What
it's
do you mean
not
I'm
as if
talking-
these fakers,
Stop.
right, will not
You're
have
not
their people in
figure-
place to
I'm
push
noticing something.
the fake
Stop.
stories, right,
Brenda.
as real and ridicule anyone who sees
Yeah,
through them.
Brenda. This is
Well,
like I
it
said, a
is. So
conversation.
grass isn't green.
Are
It isn't.
literally
Brenda.
doing
Show
something
your
that's not,
face.
like, I don't know why you're doing
It isn't green.
Okay, stop, guys. I'm gonna mute everybody again.
The
I don't
amount
care.
of people
Ready? I'll mute
that
the
will
shit out of
have to
everybody.
be involved in a flat Earth conspiracy is astronomical. It is different from any.
How do you know that?
other
How do you know that?
conspiracy.
How do you know that?
Masons keep secrets,
I
don't
can
they?
name
Hang on, Pete.
multiple professions. I can name multiple private companies. I can name multiple annual events that happen in Antarctica by private citizens.
That doesn't mean
I
that-
can name multiple
that
people
doesn't
who
prove
claim
anything.
Show us the scientific proof behind the Earth movement beneath us. Show us that proof.
Oh, Globebusters
Yeah.
did that already.
First, we're dealing with the
Bob-
shape of the Earth.
Bob
First, we're dealing
Bob
with the
proved
shape.
their spins.
Well,
already.
if the Earth
No,
doesn't
he
move,
didn't,
then the
Brenda.
ball, then
That's a
hang on,
fact.
if the
You're
Earth doesn't
straw man and
move,
you know it.
if the Earth doesn't move, then the ball
got
doesn't
that
enter
from
the
that
equation
stupid
based on the
Netflix
universal
movie, and it
behavior
ain't
of
even a
water,
true
which
thing.
is just flat when it's level.
Exactly, Pete. They just believe everything that's told
Barney,
to them.
you're
All
so
they ever
hard.
see, Barney.
There's
pretend
really no
to
hope for them, I
Letters.
They
guess.
pretend to, but that's because they're in on the secret and they're playing their part.
Exactly.
Hey,
A lot of
Sean,
these guys are
Sean, do you
agents.
know
like,
something?
the people that try and
Sean,
stop
As a
Sorry,
federal
Brenda.
agent, I advise
What
you
we're saying.
all
They're all
to stop
agents.
this line of
Guys.
inquiry now.
Guys,
1 second, guys.
One at
One
a
second,
time,
Sean.
please.
Sean, let me say something. Do you know, it's quite funny. The only reason I came on is because you started talking about geoengineering. I thought, oh, brilliant, we're going to have a conspiracy, no flat earth tonight or anything like that.
You know what?
And here we go.
No,
It's a-
even worse than that.
I thought we were
Even
going
worse.
to talk about social engineering and politics.
That's
Like
what-
how,
exactly.
give
That's
us
what-
one of
fix
that.
that's what we started
politics
at,
and
too.
what's wrong with it. And
Yeah, because
I
Give me the
already
social
have my
engineering
notes
any day.
about Goodhart's
talk
law
about-
and
that's what we're gonna
perverse
do.
incentives.
Look.
And
Watch this. Watch this. All right. So the beginning of this conversation, we started off
Which
with
is,
the
and then Brenda
idea,
joined in and brought it down to flat Earth
Yeah.
because she's a fucking agent.
because of
And now she's trying to convince us that grass
This is the way every hangout goes, right?
Okay, I'm shifting.
There's no hope for you, Barney. Like, you
Okay.
believe everything that you see on
Chris,
TV, so
stop.
He
there's
said
really
he
no hope.
didn't
They're all so
Everybody
answer
stop.
the
transparent at this
question, and
stage,
he said he
Chris.
did
I
not.
have power. Stop, everyone. So,
Anyone mention Aristarchus yet?
damn it. Okay, like I was saying, guys, the beginning of this conversation, and the topic that I actually am interested in, I actually see a panel full of people that can probably have some good insight on it. Anarchism, no government. I believe that our government is shit. It does need to change. We need to figure something out of how to change it. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with someone who believes that anarchism is the solution. I see a million holes in it. I already kind of went through my rant, so I promise you guys I'm not going to do it again. But
John, can I just be like an asshole and point out that your title is not suggesting that you don't want to talk about flat Earth?
Define
was
anarchy
flat Earth
first.
when we
Get the right
started.
definition of anarchy first, right?
I started off with wanting to do this, and I'll say it. I want to prove flat Earth to flat earthers. If we can't, then there's only one conclusion to it. Now, yes, that is what I wanted to be talking about, but if the panel doesn't fill up and the conversation doesn't start, then it doesn't start. But if anyone wants to talk about proving and evidence, we can do that.
Well, the problem with monarchy is that it creates hierarchy where like a group of people are in charge of like everything. But with anarchy, there's also another problem with that because it creates chaos. Like you no longer have like a police force to protect you in case anything happens. You can't protect yourself because like there's no government to guard you from like people invading your country and doing whatever they want to. So it's a two-sided coin. We have a shit government, but you know, there are benefits to having it as well.
But we live in a fabricated reality, Chris. And look, our enslavement goes back to the legal name fraud. If everything was above board, if everything worked as it said on the tin, everything would be fine. But it doesn't. It doesn't at all. We live in an absolute fake reality. And
I agree. But then what's going to happen if you don't have, you know, the infrastructure that we have right now? What's going to happen if you don't have department stores to supply you with food? You don't have apartment complexes to live in. What are you going to do?
Pollution will be reduced.
Root out all the rats. Root out all the rats. This is what militias are about in America. This is why they're taking guns. There's no guns here in Ireland. You can't, you know, all our rights are taken away via the legal name fraud. But the legal name is a dead entity. You know,
I bet there's guns in Ireland.
I'm glad it's all coming to an end. And I think that's why the likes of Brenda and Panic Do here play their part, because they know that there is a greater goal
Pete,
behind it.
I bet you there are guns in Ireland.
Did you know that the sky? Did you guys know that? Did you guys know the sky?
Stop, Brenda.
Brenda, please stop.
Sky is not blue. It was invented back in like I don't know the 17 or 1800s.
Yeah, I totally agree that Channel Q and Brenda are agents that are put in place to try and keep the conversation from progressing. Because whenever
Chris, stop. Brenda, I just said it in the chat, and I didn't want to have to say it. I have never disrespected you. Please stop acting that way and disrespecting my stream. I know you. I know what you're doing. Stop. Otherwise, I will kick you off my panel because I don't need that. You're diverting conversation that was being had.
Right. And let me just say, Brenda's been in this arena for 4 years, and not once have I heard him change his mind about anything.
Please stop. Go ahead, Brenda.
Sean, why am I making that? Why am I saying that? Why am I saying that? What point am I making?
You're frustrated because we put you on the spot. No, Brenda, stop. What I'm doing. I know exactly what's going on. I don't like it. I've talked to you so many times that I know when you're doing this, and I know when you're just talking. And I know right now, because you've been on this tirade on every fucking stream, when you get put on the spot, you get irritated, and then you start doing this weird shit where you start just interrupting and bringing pointless shit to it and acting unnecessary. Brenda, you're smart. I know it. I've told you that there's no reason for you to do that shit here. Please stop. I didn't want to have to say this to you because I thought you were adult enough that I didn't have to. Just fucking stop. Okay. I've never been disrespectful to you. Stop disrespecting my stream.
Gird up your lines, Brenda.
Pete, you have nothing to do with this conversation, Pete. Do not add to it.
Can I explain the point that I'm making?
I really hope it has a point.
Yes, it does. When I say that it's a government conspiracy that the sky is blue, what I'm pointing out is the futility of a conspiracy to keep secret the fact that the Earth is actually flat, because you can't do that. Just like you can't do it with the sky being blue. It would be impossible for there to be a conspiracy to prove to keep secret the flat Earth or to promote the lie of gravity, because these are real physical things in reality that can't be kept a secret, and that's
Brenda,
why.
I agree. You defined it. Hang on, Brenda. You defined the sky. So you say the sky is blue, but we've seen from high altitude balloon footages when what looks like a blue sky, when you get beyond a certain point, the sky suddenly turns black. So what color is the sky, and what is the sky?
Now, Brenda,
explain where you are.
Yeah, explain to him why that happens.
What is the sky? Tell me what the sky is.
Pete, you asked a question. Stop, Brenda. Explain to him why that happens, because
it's due to Rayleigh scattering, right? It's because the shortest wavelengths of light penetrate the air of the atmosphere.
And so it's an interaction of light and atmosphere. Okay.
That's right. The longer wavelengths get scattered, and the blue wavelengths are able to get through, and so on the surface, the sky looks
the other way around.
Yes, exactly, Barney.
The other way around.
Exactly,
it's the other way around. Okay,
exactly, yes.
That's right. That's right.
So what do we mean when we say the sky, Brenda? Just a simple childlike answer will do. What do you mean when you say the sky?
What do you mean? What do I mean when I say the sky?
Come on, that's a simple question.
The atmosphere, Pete.
Our atmosphere.
Okay, well, is there atmosphere, or is there atmosphere the sky?
atmosphere
You said the
is
sky is
Same
blue.
thing. Same.
But hang on, you say the sky is blue, but the atmosphere isn't blue, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
No, it isn't. The cloud isn't blue.
Well,
That's
you know,
part of the
you know,
atmosphere.
The
a lot
cloud
of
is in the
colors-
atmosphere. The cloud is a cloud in the atmosphere. Thank you.
Well,
But the
everybody
atmosphere
knows
just begins
clouds-
just above the ground, doesn't it?
So do we see things with a blue tint then?
Well,
Yeah.
actually, doesn't atmosphere everywhere?
No, the thing is that light is
So what?
white,
So
light is white, and white is a
Light is white,
spectrum
right?
of all color. Okay,
Well, as in-
and
well, as in-
black is the absence of all color, right? And white is the presence of all color. And when you
Well, as
put
in-
white,
No, that's
when
the
you
opposite.
put
It's
light
opposite.
No,
through a
that's-
prism, you can refract it and bring out a rainbow because there's all of those colors
which is
inside the
not
light.
light.
So hang
That's
on,
wrong,
light
Channel
that
Q.
comes from the
Ali,
sun.
so hang
So
on.
then when the light reaches the atmosphere,
can't split
the
light.
prism, it
Yes, you
scatters all the light except for the blue light.
Right.
No.
So you're
That's
saying
the other way
around.
Frequency
So
that
you're
the
saying
light,
that light-
moves a wavelength on, which we
Chelsea,
is
hang on,
blue.
Barney,
It's blue.
what's
the
the other way around?
exactly what I say. Light is an interaction.
Blue.
hang on, Barney. Can you fix what?
Bullshit.
Can I fix this?
Yeah, please.
I hate it
Yes.
when I try to
Just
drop
just
some fucking
explain-
legit
just explain-
science and all I get is talked
But
over.
hang on,
and
then.
then at the end,
Light
somebody
comes from the
tells
sun.
me-
Hang
Stop.
on, Q.
Hang on,
Light
Q.
comes
I'm
from the
being
sun.
talked over when I'm trying to tell you something important.
Yeah, Channel Q. But there was something in there you said that Barney had said to flip around, and I wanted it to be
Well,
clear.
I can't even think because everybody's talking over me,
And
so
I
it's
agree.
possible
If you're
that
talking-
I couldn't even say what I
You're
was
right.
trying to
If-
say.
If you're talking, no one else should be. But I do remember Barney saying something was flipped around, and I was just asking him to clarify
Yeah,
what
he
He said that about Brenda because Brenda was saying that the blue light scatters, but
he
it's
said
not
on
the
both.
blue light
No, no,
that
he
comes
said both.
through
Blue
and
light-
everything else is
Brenda was
scattered.
saying the same thing as you are. Blue
No.
light
I
is the one
didn't
that
say that because I know that the other
Blue-
light is what scattered and the blue light is
Blue-
what made it through.
Can
Blue
I
light
ask
is
Channel
what
Q a
scatters.
question? Can I ask Channel Q a question? I'm going to go ahead and ask a question anyway.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you said that we see stuff
Chris-
getting obstructed in
Chris.
the horizon.
Chris, hey,
Yeah.
Sean asked me a question.
Okay, yeah, when he's finished.
All right. Yeah. Go ahead.
You're new to these house, Barney. You got to get in when you can.
Yeah. So blue light is the light that scatters. When the white light enters into the atmosphere, the lights of higher frequency are easier to scatter because they hit more particles. So the light that is scattered will seem as though it's coming from all directions. So you will see blue everywhere.
Yep.
Really, scattering doesn't affect only blue light. It affects all lights at a different level. So when the sun is high and coming through a little bit of atmosphere, all of the sky will look blue. But when the sun is low,
Well, thank
all of that
you.
will-
I'm so glad
all of
nobody's
it-
talking over you, but everybody talked over me while I'm trying to make the same
Well,
point.
again,
And now
Cal,
I'm
I
being
agree,
spoken to in this
all-
condescending tone, like as if I need to be
No,
corrected.
all-
But I wasn't even allowed to speak, and that's why I made mistakes.
Cal,
And so now I don't think it's
don't
fair
know-
that I be condescended in
You're not being
this way.
con- look,
Because if I
You're
don't
talking
know,
to everybody.
and now I'm
So-
talking again.
Channel,
Nobody is
'cause
allowing
I'm
me to say what I have
defending
to say.
myself. I'm trying
So
to
I'm
defend
wasting
myself.
my time. I'm wasting my time.
Channel, there was something in there that wasn't correct, and it was trying to be corrected.
Why did I
No
say
one-
something that wasn't correct? Was I allowed to speak and think while I spoke, or
absolutely,
did I have
but
to listen to
I
everybody
don't-
else
okay, here's the
asking?
thing. I don't know anything
And
about
now,
it, so if I
now
perfectly
I'm
okay
trying to
with
point
me
that out
speak.
that
Hey,
I've
don't
never
have a
gotten
cow,
a
Q.
chance to try to make the point myself without anybody speaking over me. Instead, we just handed it over this guy.
I 100% agree with you.
Who is
but
now
if you're
going to
talking-
correct me?
Stop.
It's
And
a
I'm
law of the
saying,
jungle.
please don't correct me. Please allow me
Wait.
to make the point uninterrupted. But we can't do that here. So bye.
You finished, and
Oh,
that's when I
actually,
asked Barney.
Oh, fuck.
Barney,
You said the visible light is an interaction between the light that leaves the sun and the atmosphere,
Yeah,
whatever
let Barney
constituent
finish.
parts of the atmosphere.
Yeah, go ahead, Barney. Please.
Okay, so due to the same Rayleigh scattering, you will get red at sunset. Why? Because the sun is coming through so much atmosphere that all of the blue has been scattered away. So all that's coming to you are the yellow and red frequencies, which are then being scattered. And that's why you will get that red tint on one side.
So we're seeing it through more water particulation, you might say.
It's not what it, so it is particulates. So
Water
small
particulation,
dust.
though.
It is particulates of certain size which coincides with the frequency of light.
Which
And-
is
and
water
that's-
particulation, right?
Right. And
Water
Barney,
particulation.
that explains.
Not
That explains.
necessarily.
Barney, that also explains why the moon will turn red.
Right, the blood moon.
During certain eclipses, correct?
And it also explains the blood moon in a sense. We're looking at it through more water.
If the Earth occludes the sun for the moon, what will be lighting the moon is that refracted light that has been stripped of all of blue, and that's why it will look red.
Yes.
Pete, can you see the moon? Pete, can you see the moon at the moment?
Well, I can't see it quite from here, but it's near outside the window. Yeah, I saw it earlier on.
Right, okay, well, see if you go look at it, right? I'm looking, I can see the moon here tonight. I was a bit confused because what do you call it? The termination line, right? It's a half moon, right? The termination
no, it's not a half moon.
Well, it's here.
No, man, it's almost a full moon, actually. Two days off a full moon.
One second.
Wait, I just heard something with the Terminator line.
Oh, right, hang on. Right. 1 second. It's
on a flat Earth. How can that?
1 second. 1 second, Pete. I've got it because Pete's in the same kind of time zone, so he'll be able to see. Well, it's actually it's just over half moon, but the time it's shown is 5 to 5, right? And it was up about, I would say about 40, 50, maybe 60 degrees inclination off the horizon, right? It was up the angle, right? Now, so it was at 5 to 5. So that means that the illumination was pointing upwards, right? At that, you could say probably 5 degrees negative, right? So it's pointing up the way. The sun itself was over the horizon. So the illumination that it was given the moon was totally contradictory where the sun should be, because the sun was down at an angle from there. The sun would have been down, pointing down about 40. It would have been down about 45, but the illumination was turned the other way. It was the opposite way.
It's never the opposite way. Show me a picture of that. It's never the opposite.
Hang on, right, 1 second. I'll see if I can get a photograph now.
I can see it out the window, Ali. Let me just tell you the moon in the Irish sky here in Limerick on the west coast of Ireland. The cut-off part is at the bottom, right? So we have, as you say, the termination or whatever it's called. It's along the bottom, and it's about a 3/4 full moon. I say another 2 or 3 days we'll have a full moon. So see the way it is today. Yeah, there you go. Today, but it's Okay, whoever's screen is. No, it's at the bottom here. So you see the shadow of the crescent part. Yeah, it's sort of turned around at the bottom.
How do you explain?
The moon never looks like that, though, like ever.
Yeah, no, sure it does.
Well, I mean,
that's not how the moon looks here.
Like, it has like the characteristics of a sphere, and that kind of that's not what we see in reality, though.
It's the 16th, and it's 22:11 here. So you see the shadow part on the moon there, that whoever has that picture up, it's if you rotated that around, so it's at the bottom, like a smiley face. That's how I see the moon right now, and it's up at about, it's in the southern sky, I say. And it's pretty high up.
What you looking at?
The shadow part, right? The missing part, it's around the bottom. So the orientation is correct as I'm looking at the moon here, but the missing shadow part is along the bottom.
The moon never looks like that in reality, like ever.
Yeah, it does.
That's close, Chris, to what I'm looking at, except the shadow part is along the bottom.
Take a picture.
That actually looks like a sphere, though. Like, what we see doesn't look like a sphere. It doesn't have the characteristics of a sphere. It doesn't have hot spots and shadows. It just looks flat.
Oh no, it's not a sphere, no.
So
the moon is a reflection of the sun.
Should I pull up some images of the moon, and we can show you exactly?
Yeah, go ahead. Show me the moon looking like a sphere. I want to see.
It always looks like a
called
sphere.
The characteristics.
If you're zoomed in on it.
There are things that you can observe that a sphere would have, and a flat object wouldn't, and vice versa.
No. The barrier against everything is reflecting is contoured. This is what gives the illusion. And the sun and the moon are the same size for specific and easy, simple reasons. We want to come to a flat Earth realization. They're reflections of one another, or the moon is a reflection. Light is not what they tell us it is.
I should have said that instead of not look like that ever. It's never going to look like that.
Man, that makes absolute sense when you think about it.
It doesn't.
Yeah, like if he did that, it would never look like that ever. So I'm curious to see the picture that you're talking about.
I can't get a photograph of it with my phone, but it looks like the one that looks like the 14th. You've got one there that says the 14th. See that picture that says the 14th of April?
Okay, yeah.
Sean, right? That one that said the 14th of April, right? But the thing's faced up, so it's like 5 to 5. No, it's not like that. Go back to that one. Go back to that one.
That's the 14th.
Where are we? Oh yeah, sorry. Yep, that. Yeah, that. Do that again. Where are you?
So
hang on.
You want me to go back to where we
No,
were?
that's right. You're right.
Okay.
No, that's it. But it was shown at 5 to 5, meaning that angle there is tilted. So it's pointing upwards instead of down towards the horizon where the sun would be. But it's tilted up the other way.
But you gotta also remember.
I just can't get it. I can't get the photograph on my phone because of there's not enough light, and it's just shown up like a big, huge, bright light. So I've not learned the photograph technique, but I'll take it. It happens all the time. It's not the first time I've seen it and asked that question.
Sean he had a photo that he has of the moon that actually looks like a sphere, and I was just wondering if you're still going to show that.
Yeah,
Show that to me. It's all illusion here.
But the moon, the light that's reflected.
Ones I've taken. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The light that's reflected on the moon, even though sometimes based on your vantage point, it may not appear to exactly line up with the position of the sun, it is never, and I repeat, never opposite of the sun. You can never show me a picture like that unless you Photoshop. Guarantee you that.
Pictures of the sun and the moon during the daytime. You see the sun and the moon all the time in the daytime.
Yeah,
that's not what I said. I said the light that you see on the moon, even though it may not appear to exactly line up with the sun, it will never be on the opposite, in the opposite direction of the sun.
Right.
Never.
So what happens if I got you a photograph? Right. If I got you a photograph, Jacques. Jacques. If I got you a photograph of, say, for example, the sun and the moon wasn't in the sky at the same time, and the moon wasn't full.
What would that prove?
Would that mean anything? And the angles were...
The light that's being cast on the moon is not from the sun. That's what it would prove.
Yeah.
Because think about it. How can you see the moon in the daytime and the crescent is like on the
your perspective,
the wrong end that it's supposed to be on?
Perspective.
Yeah,
show me a picture where the crescent is on the wrong end.
Yeah.
Seen it, Chris. Yep.
Please show it to me.
Okay, look. Check this out. So, what I'm showing you guys, and trust me, none of the pictures you're going to look at are like professional, like crazy good, because I suck. But what I can guarantee you, what you're looking at are pictures that I have personally taken myself, and each one of them gives you like their characteristics that you wouldn't see, right? Well, first of all, when I'm looking at it, that looks like a goddamn sphere to me. It's not a flat object. I'm gonna get to one that will give you a good idea.
It doesn't have any three-dimensionality to it, though. Like
yes, it does.
Was that during the day, Sean?
Yeah, those ones were
Sean,
just now.
Was that other one during the day? That was a full moon during the day, yeah?
This one's during the day. I got a few that are during the day. It's kind of got a... This is
sunset
right here.
Yeah, so what?
Right, so
why is it at night? What's the difference?
Why is it not reflecting the sun the way it should be?
What should it
be?
It
is the way it should be.
Yeah, what
should do you mean should be?
What should it be?
Which side is the sun on?
The sun is in the west.
Is it on the right side?
Behind us.
It's in that image that you're looking at right now. We're looking west as well.
We're looking west. Okay.
Hang on. I'm trying to orient myself to that where I was.
No, the sun can't be in the west and the moon at the west at the same time.
That
Okay,
should
that's
be
not
a
true.
No. Look. I was facing southeast. I know that because I'm actually looking at the actual large image of that, and I know where I was facing now. I apologize.
Yeah, if you're southeast, that makes sense. And
it
the
was
sun
high in the
is
sky.
and the sun is setting in the west, or is
The sunlight rays were so low that it wasn't hitting me to be able to see the sun
the
shine.
trees. Yeah,
how
the
come
trees
the
are
whole
in
moon
shadow.
isn't
But the
lit up?
moon isn't on Earth in front of your face. It's way out in space, way further away from you than you realize, that it's still giving the sun's light rays. That's what you're seeing.
And if the moon is close or local, how could everybody who sees the moon see the same phase of the moon?
And that's
Well,
because
I
it's
mean,
not
I didn't say
close.
anything about the moon being local. I'm just wondering why it's not.
I'm just
it
saying,
doesn't show
do
the
you believe the
characteristics
moon is
of
local?
a sphere.
I haven't met a flat earther that doesn't believe the moon is local.
What do you regard as local, Jacques?
I didn't.
Yeah, but Jacques, what would you regard as local? What do you think local means?
Anything within, when I hear a lot of flat earthers say 3,000 miles, 3 to 5,000 miles would be local compared to 240,000 miles. So when I say local, I mean within 5,000 miles from the surface of the earth.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
I don't believe that either.
So now you've met two. So
Yeah, I was always a
Wait,
proponent.
can we stop with that image? Wait, just stop
This
with that
one?
image for a
The
second.
one we're on right
Yeah,
now.
that one.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah. Can you see how like the clouds right next to it are kind of lit, like from the underside?
Yes.
Right. So, do you really think that that moon is where we're being told it is?
Yeah, 'cause
if
if you look-
that's the effect that we're
Yes.
getting right now?
If you look where my cursor is,
Yeah.
it's doing the exact same thing, which means the moon is low enough in our skies to give you that observation.
Right. So it's not as far away as they say it is.
No,
then,
that's not what
if
I
it's
said.
able to do that.
Nope, not what I said at all. Because it is where it is, it gives us the perspective in our sky to be that low under where the clouds are. That's just how it is because it's further away. But the same amount of each cloud is lit up under it, which tells us that it is correct and it's far away, because if it was close up, it would be different.
how would you know?
You can get a flashlight, start from 20 feet away, and just walk towards the wall, and you'll see how that light reflects on a surface from the distance it's at. The moon wouldn't do
Yeah,
that.
but you'd have to. But what you'd have to do, Sean, I'm not being facetious or whatever. But what you'd have to do to recreate that, you can't say that. To recreate that, you'd have to get the dimensions exactly right.
What would
You'd
you
have
say?
to recreate the same.
What would you
scene
say if
of
I
that.
could recreate that in 5 minutes in my garage with a cell phone? That's
Well,
how
that
easy it is.
effect there with the clouds and everything, or that
No,
that
but
kind
I
of.
can give you a complete run through in proof of exactly the moon phases. All I
So
need
you
is
would have.
I can get a tennis
Well,
ball.
not the moon phases. We're talking about the clouds at the moment. That scene that you've got shown there, right? That's what we're talking about. You said you could recreate that.
Yeah, I can do that too.
That
I
exact
can do that too. It's easy.
thing. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, but it'd be more than just getting our phone, because you would have to work out the size of the moon compared to how close. You'd have to work out the distances in relation to the moon, to the distance of the moon to the clouds,
You did
the
that. already.
clouds to the earth.
You can tell in
Very
any given
good.
time you see that, you can
Right,
find out
how
what
high are the
you can
clouds,
find out
Sean?
what degree it's at. You know, in your sky.
How high are the clouds, Sean? How high are the clouds?
At this point where I'm at there, I would guesstimate 20,000 feet.
Now the globe Earth explains that this observation.
100%.
You just said, Chris and Ali just said that they don't believe that the moon is that close, within 5,000 miles.
Yeah, and
how can you explain this on a flat Earth if the moon is more than 5,000 miles above the Earth?
Or better yet, use the globe's numbers, because the distance of the moon and the elevation in our sky at that moment will explain exactly what you're seeing. It will all add
But
up.
but see, the thing is, you're under the assumption that they've worked out Do you know how they worked out the distance to the moon? In fact,
Yes,
do you know
100%. I'm so happy you
how
said
they
that,
worked
Ali.
out the distance to the moon?
I'm so happy you said
How
that.
did they
because-
work out the distance to the moon?
Okay, so check this out.
Then?
I'm privy. This is actually, I'm very honored about this. I started doing some hiking, and 15 minutes from where I was staying in the mountains is a site called the Direct Laser Site. It is not governmentally owned. It used to be an old Army site back in the day. Now it is a FAA surveillance site and a direct laser site owned by San Diego State University College astronomy program or something like that. What they do is they go out there on certain times, and they open up these containers, and there is a giant laser. Very impressive. And what they do is they don't directly shoot for the laser or for the reflectors. They just shoot the moon. And that is another method that they use to be able to tell distance, the distance or the depth of those craters, and just stuff like that. And I was lucky enough to talk to one of the guys that works with them. And one night went out there, and it's not impressive to watch, unfortunately. I thought it would be, but all they do is shoot one of those, those red laser lights you have that you can buy. It looks like a 1 foot in diameter one, and it blinks for a few minutes, and then it stays solid for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then it blinks again, and then it stops. And then guess what? They're done. They take all the data, and what I didn't know is that data is being sent to the moon, the light, and there's a receiver waiting for it to come back. It takes all those back, that data in, and then it flashed 3 times, 3 times this time, went solid for this long, blinked again, and those are the variables. So that every time they've changed the situation, they can count how long that should take to get back to them. They should see a steady a pattern that they sent. They should see that, so they know nothing got in between, and they know that they are hitting the object they want. That is exactly how.
Wait a second, Sean. What you're saying is that they shoot a laser beam at the moon, and a receiver on Earth gets a signal back once it hits?
I assume so. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. What about the dispersal rate? Like, what kind of laser are they using? Because over a certain distance, light tends to disperse a little bit.
Yes, laser does disperse. But the thing is, if you add that to the calculations, you can adjust for that. And I know that personally because I use total stations, which is a laser and a laser receiver, and I have to take that in consideration with my distances. That is exactly the reason why in surveying there are 2 different professions, whereas plane and geodesy. Because as a plane surveyor, any of the equipment you're using, any blueprints or any job you're going to be doing, is inside that threshold for being off. You don't want to. You want to. You can be off and use offsets, which will correct it, but you don't want to have to do it on a large scale.
Well, I'd like to know what type of laser can shoot close to 3,000 miles away without getting any significant type of dispersal that's going to affect what the overall image is going to get once it hits the target. Because we're talking about something that's close to 300,000 miles away. Like, what laser beam is capable of staying, within the same size for that distance?
It doesn't stay the same size.
Yeah,
you basically cover the entirety of the moon with your laser at that distance. But it's probably going to cover a lot more than that. Probably.
Right. So what's the quality of signal coming back? The strength of signal coming back.
Which is why you're not going to see a tiny bright red dot on the moon where your laser is pointing.
So what are you going to see exactly?
You will just get the light of that same frequency reflected back. It will be very faint, but you can filter out only that light, and then based on the pattern of you turning it on and off, you can tell which signal came back. Right? You're not going to see the shape of the laser, but you're going to see when it's on and when it's off. Right? So if you blink it and then turn it on and then blink it, 2.5 seconds later, you will get that same pattern on your detector.
As far as when the light comes back, what's detecting that? Like,
a computer.
What's detecting the beam
sensor.
that's coming back?
A sensor.
Yeah, but think, right,
sensor,
you know,
a
right,
sensor is set to detect a single frequency.
right, I think what Chris is getting at, right, here's the thing, right, you know, as it disperses, right, as it disperses,
Yes.
the actual strength of the signal that's getting received on
Yes.
the moon is going
It
to
has
be
to be
magnitudes lower
Yep.
than
Yes.
when it got sent out, right?
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
on the way back, it's going to be
Lose more.
magnitudes to the same magnitude, even more
Yeah, you're right.
dispersed.
Yep. That's
'Cause
why
it's
it has to be
so-
a certain amount to be able
But you
to do
told
it.
us you could go one. You said it was one of these lasers that you could buy out the shop.
Oh no! I was just giving that as an example of what I saw when they shot it off at first. It was just the conditions that I saw that, but you don't receive, you don't see the return. That's why you have
Think
to.
about it.
Yeah, I'm
Think
positive
about
if that's what you thought. No, it's not.
No,
nothing
that's
like
okay.
that.
But I'm saying, think
Ellie,
about that.
Ellie, you
The
missed the
amount
part
of
of the
energy.
sentence
Wait a
there.
minute. Let me finish. The amount of energy. The amount of photons, even shall we say, if it's photons, it's probably not. It's a radio signal they're probably catching. But if it's a photon that catch, the amount of photon, it'd be next to nothing that they're going to pick back up. It's a bit, and then so what's the strength of the laser or the strength of the signal, shall we say? Because I don't think it's a laser.
That's what
I think it's a
right
radio
now,
signal.
I'm looking. I'm trying to find. I don't remember the site name.
Ellie,
But I'm trying to find the website, and then
I don't
I'll
think
show you
it's
guys
light.
a picture.
Ellie.
So basically, what Sean is saying here is
Ellie,
that
you missed
able
the part
to-
of his sentence when he was saying, like the laser that you buy at the store. He said the laser like you buy at the store. Just imagine it way bigger.
Right. So
Ah,
so I guess the
I
point
know.
I guess the
No,
point
that was.
Sean's trying to make
Yes,
here
I
is
know.
that the speed that it takes the laser to get to the moon is what determines the distance that the moon is
No.
at. Is that what you're
The time
saying?
it takes to get back to the receiver.
So the time that it takes from the moon to get back to the receiver.
No,
No,
the whole signal
Divide it in half.
to and back, Chris, to the moon and back.
Exactly.
And then they work that out. They'll do their usual mathematics, and they'll come up with a number. But the point is, I'm interested how the strength of the signal that's coming back, because there's a magnitudes less photons hitting that little receiver on the moon.
Yeah, give me a
On
second.
that huge big ball, it's hitting there. It picks up nothing, and it's sending the signal back.
I'm right now.
Yeah, because the
I'm looking
light's
through all
already
my files,
dispersed
and I'm gonna
enough by
find
the
it for
time it gets there. So when it reflects back, it's going to be at a weaker.
you. You're right. Yes.
Yes, absolutely, of course.
If you figure out the strength it needs to be to be
Double.
able to be able to receive the signal, then you can do it.
Yeah, and if you go and get the technical details for that, I think you'll find that you'll struggle. Because I already looked into that. I already looked into this years ago. This was like 3 or 4 years. This is an old subject about bouncing and bouncing radio signals off the moon and all that
That's
kind
like
of
ham
stuff.
radios, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and how can
if you
how can
actually
be
look
certain-
into if you actually look
certain that
into
the
what
light
moon
is actually hitting the moon?
Because you can turn it.
I don't know if you've looked at floodlights that are pointed at the sky.
Because if you
Sometimes
go-
the
I can tell you.
floodlights do get obstructed by like clouds in the atmosphere.
If you
Yeah.
point your signal a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right or above or below from your perspective, you will miss and you will not get a signal back. That's how we know there is an object there.
Right. But what's stopping the light from being obstructed? Have you seen Batman's bat signal?
That's why-
like when it's shown into the sky and it's like bouncing off of the sky to reflect back the Batman
again,
signal.
a certain amount, you have to have a certain signal.
back off of the sky.
You have to find a certain
that's the
signal
movie.
to do so. It's got to be strong enough.
You haven't answered how you're going to prevent
It has to be
obstruction
strong
from
enough.
happening.
You make it a stronger frequency.
which needs
It's still going
wattage,
to
right?
get obstructed though.
Yeah,
No,
but you
no,
need
okay, stop.
You need
So, if you get
right? Listen, but what is sending? What is receiving? What wattage is getting sent
I don't know.
back
I
from
gotta
the
find the
moon?
website first. I don't know. I have to find the website first.
It would be something
You guys
tiny.
are too much. My brain's frying. Hang on. Hang on. So the question you asked, Chris. So ask it again because I said.
Yeah, let me ask it again. if you watch the Batman
I got it. My bad.
yeah, the bat signal kind of reflects off the cloud. So
this is
how
how
are
it
you
works.
preventing the laser from not doing that?
If you go in your kitchen, you probably have an average flashlight. If you go outside on the darkest night you can, and you shine that flashlight in the sky, it will just, because it's not very strong, using probably D-sized batteries, what happens is the scattering happens and it dissipates because it's not strong enough. But if you got another flashlight and put, say, a car battery on it, that light, you're going to see it shine a lot further. And that's kind of how it works. Now, again, it's flashlight versus a laser. Please just work with me here. If you add a certain amount of frequency wattage to it, it will go only so far. Well, if you figure out, or you put too much, because remember, you can put a lot into it, it'll hit the moon, and you can think that's what it takes, but you can back it off a little bit, and at some point, your numbers will start getting all funky because it will start hitting different patches of the atmosphere as you enter into Earth's atmosphere. So, because you do need a certain amount to get through each atmosphere. It's how it works.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point you're making there. But how do you know when you're there? How do you know when you've gotten to the target?
Your numbers suddenly stop bouncing around crazily.
So when you increase the intensity of the light, like it doesn't go any further, is what you're saying.
So if it takes 50 and you put 100 into it, you're going to get a lot of frequency back, and you're going to go, is it dropping like I think it should, or am I just putting too much into it? Because remember, they're looking for a number to match with what they calculated to be the return, right? The way they check that is like I said, you aim it a little bit to the left, your numbers either aren't going to come back, or they're going to be kind of wonky, as if it's seeing something, but it's not actually centered to it. So you can do that 1,000 times in any spot you want, and if you're in a spot that will bounce off the moon and you can receive it, you're going to be able to paint an imaginary data picture in your brain, and that's what the computer does. The computer does that in its brain, and then presents you with the numbers that it's calculated from the return. So it paints a picture.
There are two variables in the whole thing that you're missing. One is that the moon missions left retroreflectors there. A retroreflector is a square mirror which is set up in such a way, it's a set of square mirrors. It's basically the same thing as cat eyes on your bicycle. Retroreflectors work in such a way that if you shine a light, they will always shine it right back to the source.
Yeah.
Always at the exact same line. And another kind of piece of information that's missing is that laser light is monochromatic. It is a single frequency of light.
Okay.
So if you set up your sensor in such a way that it tells you for that frequency or that frequency adjusted for the minuscule redshift of the gravitational field, you can remove completely all of the noise from anything else, and then just look for the signal in that one single frequency of light that you're measuring, right?
Yeah, so I'm describing it more visually than it really is. It's not a visual thing, and it's not the same way I'm trying to.
Right. So when you said that you witnessed someone doing this, what numbers came back?
I would have to. That's the thing. I'm not smart like that. I know the website that runs it, and I'm trying to find that. And at the moment, I'm trying to find my pictures from when I did the hike.
Okay, fair enough. And that kind of answers a lot with the reflectors and everything. But if they are, let's just say they are some reflectors that are up there, there's still going to be the issue of the dispersal of the laser beam. So you're not going to exactly going to be able to hit that target.
Yeah. Okay. Remember though, the stronger it is, the straighter or the smaller the dissipation. The dissipation that you're talking about, that where it kind of gets inaccurate. You pump more power to it, more watts. It'll fix itself, and then it'll do that. The more you pump, the further that accurate dispersion stays. So you're not worrying about that.
Right. You're talking about like the hot spot, like when you shine like a flashlight at a wall, then there's like the circular like hot spot that's casted from it, and like the stronger the light is, like the more smaller or more intense that spot's going to be. It's still going to disperse though, because we're talking about 300,000 miles. That's a long way, man.
But so once it gets out of the atmosphere, it's not going to disperse further because there's nothing to disperse it.
Good point.
But
Exactly. It still has to go through the atmosphere though.
yeah, and through the atmosphere, if you get your frequency right, if you use infrared or red light, then Rayleigh scattering, we talked about it, it won't get scattered much or at all. So it'll just push through the atmosphere. But the problem that you're pointing out with scattering, so there is no perfect focusing of a laser, right? So the laser will have a dissipation regardless of the dissipation from the atmosphere. You can eliminate the dissipation from the atmosphere by picking your frequency right. But the laser will never be perfectly parallel. And you are right in the sense that you start off with a laser point, let's say this big. By the time it gets to the moon, it'll be bigger than the moon, right?
Well, I don't know, but it's not going to be the same size though.
It'll be huge, right? And it's even worse because the reflection that you're looking at, you're not looking at the reflection of the moon, you're looking at the reflection from the retroreflectors. There's five of them, I think, and they're half a meter by half a meter, maybe meter by meter, something like that. You will be detecting the reflection only from that, because whatever hits the surface of the moon will get scattered in all of the directions and you won't get it. However, that meter by meter retroreflector, those 5 reflectors will push it directly back at you. Now, the loss is tremendous. You will not be getting anything even on any kind of meaningful scale compared to what you said. However, if you can isolate the right frequency, you can detect really, really faint light of just that frequency. And since you're turning it on and off in a pattern, you can isolate the signal that you've sent from any noise, right? Because you will be doing short, long, short, long, let's say. And then in the pattern in that wavelength, you will be looking just for that pattern that you have sent. And measuring when that pattern comes back as a very, very faint signal. Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I completely understand what you're saying. The only issues that I have with that is, the dispersal that's going to happen as it passes through the atmosphere. I understand that there's no atmosphere in space, so that's going to stop at that point. But then we're talking about a beam that has to bounce off of, the reflectors on the moon, then come back through the atmosphere again, and further get dispersed again. That's a huge amount of information loss, and not just that, but like how are the detectors distinguishing, that light from other lights? I know you said that there's a tolerance that it has, and it's able to pick up like certain wavelengths of light, but how is it distinguishing that from like the other stuff that's going on in our atmosphere?
So I believe that I've answered all of those, but let me try again. The dispersal due to the atmosphere, you can eliminate completely by selecting your frequency of light correctly. When we talked about Rayleigh scattering, we said that red light doesn't scatter almost at all due to particulates in the atmosphere because its wavelength is long enough. So you don't even use red light, you use infrared light, which is even longer. So if you're firing it up through the atmosphere, those 100 kilometers of the atmosphere will literally not affect it. Right? You can shoot it at the moon parallel to the ground, and it will still not affect it because it'll affect it in what's it called, in refraction, right? Which is why you would have to aim a little bit to the side to account for that, but it will not scatter it. It'll still
Wouldn't it be worse though if you aim it at an angle, because you're going through more atmosphere as opposed to if you're going like straight up?
It would be worse, but that's why the whole point of picking infrared is to eliminate any really scattering, to eliminate any scattering due to particulates in the atmosphere.
Right. I've heard about the Rayleigh's thing before. I'm going to have to look into that a little bit more just because I'm not too familiar with that. But yeah.
Okay, I have a question though.
And the other component of it, as I said, is that like you're trying to detect very faint light, right? So there's all kinds of light coming towards you, including the light of the moon, and it's all so much brighter than what you're trying to detect. But you know what the frequency of your laser is.
Right.
So you say, hey, sensor, ignore just everything else. Just don't tell me about it. Tell me about this one specific frequency and nothing else. You will still get some noise, but not nearly enough. And then you make a pattern of turning it on and off, and then you look for a signal with that pattern. And then whatever else has arrived, you just ignore it. That's not the signal that you were sent. That's just noise. That's how error bars are created. That's how you eliminate extraneous effects.
Right, fair enough. Yeah, I completely understand that. I just, the thing that I'm really curious about now is just figuring out what the real figure is as far as like the distance of the moon. And I wish Sean would have gotten that info from the place that he was referring to. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that certainly explains a lot. Okay.
Now, you know, the model explains, for example, why there is a supermoon and why the moon would look bigger on a globe Earth. My question to Ali and Chris is, how can everybody see a supermoon at the same time on a flat Earth?
How can they see a supermoon at the same time?
Meaning, if it's bigger for me over here in the United States, how is it still big for somebody over in Australia?
Why would it be different?
Jermaine is a smart guy.
Because it's
a very good observation.
You're still saying, even though you said you don't believe it's within 5,000 miles, you're still saying that it's local. When we were looking at that picture and seeing light coming from,
I didn't say that it was local. I never said that. I just said that I don't think it's as far as they say that it is what I said.
How far is it?
Do you have any idea?
How far is it?
No, I don't. And neither do you.
So how do you know it's not as far as they say it is if you have no idea how far it is?
Well, because there's certain observations that show that it may be closer, just like what I mentioned earlier with the photo that Sean showed us. There's certain things that, you know,
that's...
Yeah, exactly. And also, are you able to see something that's 300,000 miles away with your naked eyes?
Yes, with no, nothing in between.
Just think about that. Is that really possible?
Yes.
Yes.
Something that's 3,000 miles away.
Yes, absolutely.
Here's the thing. Just stating the current model and stating the facts in a do you think that this is reasonable isn't in and of itself an argument. If you don't know how far the moon is, there is no reason to think that it's close or think there's any distance, because so what people are doing is they're making very superficial observations, looking at pictures on the internet and so on.
This is not based on pictures. Everything that I've said is not, I mean, aside from what I pointed out with Sean's image that he showed us, this is not from pictures. This is from my own observation. When I walk outside.
Superficial observation is what I'm talking about. So walking outside at night, looking up at the moon, okay, but there's no reason to assume that it's either close or far. If you've got no way of measuring it, then you're just going to say, okay, it's whatever distance it is. Do go measure it.
And that is the point that I made. I don't know what the distance is. I didn't claim that I know what the distance is. I just said that I don't think it's as far as they said that it is. But as far as trying to establish where it is, I did not make any claims of that kind.
The problem is they gave us a way to figure it out.
people who have measured it without having. I mean, I don't understand. Can you?
Well, I mean, I'm doubting them, and I want to measure it on my own to verify.
Why though?
I don't see what's wrong with that.
No, I don't see why you have to doubt things like that. It's like doubting you have a spleen.
Because I don't just believe everything that I'm told. I like to verify.
Do you think you have a spleen?
Well, I mean, that's what's being told, and that's what's been educated to a lot of people. But until I actually see that on my own, I mean, you can believe that if you think
sure. But do you think you need to go to that you have a spleen?
Do I need to do what? Sorry.
Do you need to go to a doctor? Yeah, do you need to either cut yourself open or go to a doctor that you can trust? Someone
Chris
that
was talking about the moon.
Whatever.
Chris wasn't talking about.
I'm using an analogy. Why is it that you can't understand analogies?
Have you heard of ultrasounds before? Do you know what an ultrasound is?
Right.
Yeah.
How radio waves propagate?
Yeah, and you can use that to view your internal organs. So
right, and you can use radio waves to gauge the distance to the moon.
This is all stuff that can be done on Earth, but when we're talking about stuff that's going on in the sky, you can't go there, so you can't verify that.
Well,
I can verify whether I have certain internal organs.
Being explained how.
That I can do here on Earth.
It's being explained how.
We've got several ways that we know how. One of them is the lasers, and the other one is radio, bouncing radio waves off the moon, which was done in the 1950s. I don't understand.
Well, I don't understand why you don't see, or why you see a problem with me wanting to conduct these tests on my own. Like, why is that a problem?
No, that's not a problem.
It's not a problem. It's just I just find it interesting that you would doubt certain things. You're doubting you have a spleen, but you are doubting the distance to the moon for some reason. I'm not sure what the...
Because I'm skeptical. I don't just believe everything that I'm told. I like to be critical about everything and analyze everything.
Then are you saying
you have selective bleeding?
Are you saying that you don't know the distance to the moon, or are you saying they're wrong? Because there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't believe what I'm being told.
Then you would have to already have a method of measuring that to say they are wrong.
Yeah, to be even suspicious.
I don't have to have a method. I just have to look at the methods that have been used and see whether they can be,
Do you know how to fact check
done by me?
Do you understand how to fact check?
If it can't be done by me, then I can't verify it.
Do you know how to?
What don't you guys? Listen.
Hang on, guys.
Listen, what is it annoying? 1 second. Oh, sorry, Sean. Sean, can I just say something? What is it with you guys that you seem to think there is something wrong? What Chris is telling you, right? He's saying I'm in the same boat. I'm curious, but to use guys, wait a minute, let me finish on. To use guys, it seems to be curious to ask questions or doubt what other people. It's like there's something wrong with that, and I find that rather curious. That you would find that.
Let me clarify.
Exactly.
Let me clarify. Hang on. I'll clarify, and this is exactly why I said that. Okay, so Chris says, I don't know how far the moon is. That means Chris does not.
No, I mean overall, Sean. Sorry, I wasn't explicit enough. I meant overall, with the overall attitude with any question.
This is what I wanted to say. This is what I wanted to say to Chris, though. But this is what I was going to say to Chris anyway. But he needs to understand this. Saying you don't know how far the moon is means you don't know. You don't have a method of knowing. Now, if there's a place that does it, and their numbers are put out so you can be able to use them, then to be able to fact check that, you have to know how to verify the numbers. So I'm asking, you know how to do that? Because if you don't, then there's no way for you to even fact check them. So you can't really say they don't have the right numbers. Is that kind of clear what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it is clear what you're saying. That I have to understand how it was done in the first place, or have an alternative method for how to do it.
No, but the alternative method is after. But first off, you have to know. There has to be a way for you to know their numbers are wrong.
Well, there's multiple ways of doing stuff. To say that there's only one way of approaching something is wrong.
I said there were multiple ways.
I never said there wasn't. But I'm asking, do you have a method to fact check their numbers?
Do I have a method to fact check? Yeah,
their numbers. Hang on. Very specific. I'm being very specific. Their numbers to the distance to the moon. Do you have a way to fact check those numbers?
No, we don't. We don't.
Oh, wait,
no.
hold on, hang on.
that's
The
not true.
only way that that's possible is if we look into how it was done.
Yes.
And try and do it on our own. That's the only way.
No. You can figure out
Okay.
how the math was done to fact check them, and if in that math it is wrong, then you can go to a step and do that yourself. But there are multiple organizations that do this that give us multiple evidence for it happening.
Well, how is that different from what I said? I said we can
Because
look at how it was done and try and replicate
Okay,
it.
that's why I asked
Have
you.
you done
Do
that?
you have a method? What is your method for it then? You're right, but what
I
is it?
just told you what my method was.
No, you really didn't.
What?
That's what I'm asking. I'd like to know.
Shall I-
what
my
You're
method-
not listening to what I said. I said that I would look into how it was done and try and replicate what was done, if possible. If I have the resources to do it, then yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna do it.
have you got to the math part yet?
We're not at the math part
Okay,
yet.
so
No.
then you cannot say they are wrong. You just don't know, is what it really is. You don't
So
know
what
if
you're
they're
saying
wrong.
is that everything is true until proven
Yes.
otherwise? Is that,
Yes.
is that
You
what you're
can't say
saying?
it's false
No,
until
that's
proven
not what I'm
otherwise.
I mean, basically, I mean,
Well, I mean, I can think whatever I want to think.
Absolutely.
You can't
That's
tell me
true.
what
But
I
it's not.
should or
But then you
shouldn't
also
think
have to
stuff.
be honest with that it's not fact. It is your opinion. You don't know.
And is that what I said? I didn't come imposing
Sure.
Yeah.
my opinion on you people. I just said
No,
this is
you
my
said they're
opinion.
wrong. You said their numbers are wrong, and I'm asking.
that is
Is
opposing.
it just
He
something you
didn't.
think,
I'm
or
sorry,
do
he
you know
didn't.
it? You said you knew it. You've been acting like you know
I
it.
think it, and I know it.
No, you don't know
think
it. See, again, you don't know
it's a
it.
problem, yeah.
You do not know it. You.
I have my reasons to doubt
Okay,
it,
and
and
Why?
I'm gonna think that it's
What
false.
are those
until it's
methods?
What are
verified by
What
me.
is false? What's wrong? What's false with what they've told you that tells you to know they're wrong? That it's not like a secret question. It's not a trick. It's,
Well, I mean, it's a multitude of things
Okay.
that has brought me to where I'm
You
at
said
right now. It's not just
you
one
don't-
thing.
Okay, you said you know they're wrong. How do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I know
Is
because
it,
I mean,
are we
I
not
have,
allowed to know? Are you holding a
I
secret?
have a gut instinct
Okay,
that
no, see,
when I
dude,
go
come
ahead
on,
and do
Chris, dude.
Is that
Really?
is that
I
scientific?
go ahead and test it for myself, that I will
Okay,
see that
again, you
it's
don't
not
know.
what.
You think?
Okay. Just if I may, I'm sorry. Okay, the gut instinct thing. Okay. When is the when are we going to get to the point? Because we've been talking about this for what 3 years now, since the flat Earth thing popped out of nowhere.
No,
Okay.
5 years. Well, 6 years actually. I've been in 5.
6
I've
then.
been in
Okay.
5.
So for 6 years. Okay. And we're still at a point where people are saying to us, we don't believe in the current model. And then we say, well, have you got an alternative? And they say no.
Why do we need
Right,
an
so-
alternative?
Yeah, why do we need an alternative?
Okay, so
That's
Why do we need them?
Why?
because if you don't have an alternative explanation, there's no reason to doubt the current explanation.
Well, all right, okay, right. I'll tell you one reason
That's
why
nonsense.
I can. I want
is
in
that
here,
nonsense?
Chris. Let me. I've got a
It's
question
nonsense
for the
because
guy.
if we
Chris.
don't have the resources and the capabilities of doing what the institutions that are providing this information to us are doing, then how can we create the same amount
With
of
all,
information that they've
with
been
all
able
due
to
respect,
create over time?
ham radio operators in the 1950s measured the distance to the moon. Okay, that's 70 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Let me say why I don't.
I'll say.
Why I don't. I'll give you a reason so why you understand that I can. What I'll say to Sean is I don't believe they've got their figures right. I think they've got them wrong, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why. Right, and this is why I think the way I am. One of the reasons is I have not been given a satisfactory answer to how the moon orbits the Earth.
How many resources
Okay.
Chris, do you
Excuse me.
need?
No, wait a minute. Listen. I'm trying to explain. I'm expressing.
Yeah,
I want the
Ali,
guy.
Ali.
I want the guy to. I want the answer to that. See if I
Ali,
can. You
how
can
you said that?
satisfactorily answer.
Ali, how you said that was as honest as an answer as you could have given. But Chris is telling us he knows they're wrong. You would have to have a way of verifying that, and he says his gut.
Aye, okay, right.
Verified.
Stop picking on Chris, right? Okay, it was just
come on, man.
we're going into how he says it.
I'm
I'm not-
going to stick to my
Right,
position. I
but
don't
Andrew,
believe
forget. Let's
He
get
needs
back
to
onto my
understand
question.
that because he's
Get back
arguing.
onto my question.
Okay, you're right.
Get back onto my question, please. Please, my question. Right. haven't been given a satisfactory explanation. Can anybody explain to me how the moon can possibly orbit the Earth?
You mean the general theory of gravity?
What?
No. Just explain how the moon orbits the Earth. Exactly how it. Describe it to me.
How anything orbits anything. Any solar body in the solar system.
Explain it to me. Listen, you're going to convince me.
Okay.
Go for it. That's why I'm just looking for an explanation. And then I'll ask the questions. Got a couple of questions.
I've been recently in a hangout with Sean where I talked about general relativity and the concept of space-time, where space and time are actually one thing, and that fabric contains the absolute unchanging measurements from any point of reference, right? If you're just measuring space, or if you're just measuring time, then your movement will affect it. If you measure them together, then your movement doesn't affect it, and it's same for everybody. In that frame of reference, you can measure the curvature of space-time, which defines what a straight line for anything is. And a straight line for objects of certain mass, such as the moon and Earth, is such that the moon's straight line will be a curve going around the Earth. It cannot move in any other way without a force acting upon it externally to kick it out. It is constantly trying to approach Earth.
Back in? What pulls it back? What pulls it back into the Earth then?
Nothing pulls it back into the Earth.
The gravity of the Earth.
What happened to gravity?
The gravity pulls it back towards each other.
Ah, nice one. Right.
Wait. If you want,
has this not already been explained? Right. I don't want to jump on anybody, but
it probably
this has been explained.
Excuse me, Barney, carry on, mate.
I'm trying to give an honest, sincere answer to the best of my abilities. Now,
yeah, I'm following.
So the simplest answer of it is gravity, and gravity is a force that attracts them, is contingent mathematical explanation of what gravity is. General theory, general relativity is a descriptive model of how that works, and it doesn't require any external force. There is nothing really pushing the moon outside. It is that the future line of the moon curves around the Earth. Space-time is curved in such a way that if the moon moves in the straight line as much as it can by inertia itself, it will be moving in a closed loop around the
Right, okay, but it's not a perfect circle, right?
It's not a perfect circle, no.
So it goes away further.
It comes closer and moves away, yeah.
Right, okay. So how, see when it gets away from its furthest point, right?
Okay.
When it's passing the Earth, why doesn't it crash into the Earth?
So when it gets closer, as it's falling into the lowest possible point, it is speeding up.
Yep.
Right? When it reaches the point where its speed is greatest, that speed is such that it flings it out instead of having it crash in, right? Because I don't know what the...
No, I'm with you. Yes. Carry on. So it's the speed inertia. Yeah, it's the inertia takes it past.
The inertia of its movement will just push it past. So then it will go a bit further and it will slow down. And as it slows down, it will then start falling in, and it will speed up.
What slows it down?
The distance from the Earth, the conversion of kinetic energy to potential energy.
And what causes that conversion?
The distance within
gravitational field.
Yeah, the gravitational field.
Right, okay. So it's already passed at a certain speed, right? It hasn't been drawn into the Earth. It zoomed past.
Yeah.
So if the gravitational field wasn't strong enough to pull it in when it was passing by the moon, how was it suddenly strong enough when it was another, I think it's about 50,000 miles away, traveling at the same speed?
It's not traveling at the same speed.
Oh, yes, it is. It slows down, right? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
It travels at the same speed, and apparently it slows down on its curve, on the curve.
It is the very same mechanics of you throwing a ball up, and it goes up and slows down. And then
no, it's not. Yeah, but you've got a force there, apparently, in the heliocentric model. You've got gravity that pulls the ball back.
The gravity as a force from the perspective of general relativity doesn't exist. There is no force there, right? That's Newtonian physics. That's physics from.
All right, so Newtonian physics does not work outside our atmosphere.
It does.
Well, okay. So Newtonian physics is gravity. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Maybe I'm explaining it wrong. 1 second. Let me explain the scenario. The moon is traveling at, I don't know how many, 2,000 miles an hour or whatever it's traveling. Yeah, I think it's 2,000 miles an hour or something like that. Anyway, it's traveling. So it comes in really close on its apogee. I think it's its apogee when it's the closest to the Earth, right? Gravity, your Newtonian gravity doesn't catch it there, right? Now it's still got the momentum that it's using because it's accelerating. It's still got its momentum. Now it travels further and further away from the Earth. As it gets further and further away, the gravitational pull of the Earth gets weaker. If it wasn't strong enough to pull it in when it was next to the Earth, why would it begin to pull it in when it was another 50, 60, 40,000 miles away?
It is constantly affecting it, right? It is constantly changing its motion. We can talk about this from the point of Newtonian physics. If you want to talk about forces, we can talk about it from Newtonian physics. Okay, there's a force acting towards the center of the Earth. Let's say this is the Earth. It is acting like this, right?
Yep.
Is moving like this, right?
Yep.
The force is pushing it there, so it'll go there and a little bit down. And there and a little bit down, and there and a little bit down.
No, right? But it's further away, so it doesn't do that. It flies past the Earth. It goes away another 30,000 miles.
Yes.
And suddenly the gravitational pull of the Earth pulls it back in again. When it didn't pull in.
Gravitational pull is pulling it constantly throughout all of its rotation. It's not.
Yep. But it's going. So
here, it's not that it lets go here.
I understand.
Right?
I understand.
So
but we're missing the point. It's going. Listen, but it's going to.
Wait.
Okay. All right.
I'm trying to answer your question. You need to let me. So if this is the Earth and it's here, it's at its furthest point, right? And it's got some momentum to the side. It will be falling towards Earth, but it will also be going sideways. So it'll go, as it falls in, it'll pick up speed as everything that's falling down, right? It will come to the closest point. It will be moving in this direction. It will, due to its momentum, due to its speed that it has accumulated by going down, it'll pass by Earth.
It in its orbit? Gravity, right?
There doesn't need to be anything holding it. As long as there is a constant force which is proportional to the square of the distance and to the masses of those objects, just acting upon it. If you want to talk about the Newtonian model,
that's my point. Yeah, that's fine. You also can't explain that. Maybe I'm explaining it wrong, or maybe because you're stuck in gravity. This object, listen, I'll do it again one more time, right?
Okay.
An object, right, we've got the Earth and the Moon at its closest, right? It's the Earth's strongest gravitational pull. It's zooming along quite happily.
Yeah.
Now it gets to a certain point which is further away, and suddenly gravity decides to start pulling it in. Now, why wouldn't it pull it in?
No. It doesn't.
So gravity doesn't cause the... All right, so gravity does not cause the Moon to orbit the Earth. That's what you're saying.
Gravity is constantly at work, okay? It's a constant.
It never lets go, and it never suddenly decides to pick it up again. Right? It is constantly pulling it in. As it's pulling it in, it's speeding it up.
Yeah, but exactly. But but it's already got enough escape velocity, escape the gravitational pull. Because if it didn't,
if it had escape velocity, it wouldn't be in orbit.
Yeah.
okay then. All right, okay. So therefore, what you're suggesting then is when the moon's at its closest, it slows down.
No, it speeds up. When the
How
ball
can
is
it
falling
speed up?
down,
How can it speed up?
when the ball is falling down, does it speed up towards the ground or does it slow down?
Wait a minute. How can it speed up? You've told me it's constant. If it's, why does it suddenly start slowing down when it's further away if it speeds up going past the Earth?
He just explained all that, Ali.
No, he never.
Just explained all of that.
He's just
I got it.
listen. Because you're indoctrinated not to think
that's
out the box.
okay,
You're
there
not
you go.
understanding.
There you go. Okay, what's going on?
But that's
is
true. Anybody
you don't want to
else
accept it because
listening
it's
to what
indoctrination. So why are you asking these questions?
You've got cognitive. You're displaying.
If you
this is in psychology. Listen, my friend. I've
why do
studied a
you
lot
ask the
of this.
questions if you don't accept the answers?
Because
Ali,
I said if you could, if I asked if you can explain to me, give me a satisfactory. I said I have never had a satisfactory answer.
This is
why the moon. Why the moon orbits now?
This is why.
Barney. Will you let me finish? This is a conversation between me and Barney, right? Barney said it speeds up as it gets the closest to the Earth, right?
Yes.
Which is a bit counterintuitive because the gravitational field is stronger the closer. Is that not right? Inverse square law, right? So therefore, if there is not enough gravity to pull in when it is closest, why does the gravitational pull suddenly decide to work when it's the furthest point away?
It doesn't suddenly decide to work. It's always at work.
Right, but it accelerates you're telling me the gravity of the Earth accelerates the moon past it.
Okay, here's what.
Are you understanding what I'm saying? Can you not see the contradiction?
No.
It's like almost akin to nature.
There is no contradiction.
There's no contradiction. Here's what's going on, Ali. Here's what's going on.
Speed. And you're not
Ali,
getting
you know what?
And
Let
this
me
is
just have
fascinating.
a word. Ali.
Fascinating. Yeah, go on. I'll
Can I speak? Are you just going to overtalk everything?
Nope. By the way.
Thank you. Okay, here's your problem. You ask for explanations. You don't. You believe that they are some kind of. Everyone's involved in some kind of conspiracy, and we're all brainwashed. Ask the questions when you know that we're based on information that you won't accept. That seems counterproductive, and you've been years asking questions of people you brainwashed. If you have an issue with the orbit of the moon, then go and do your own science and give us an alternative. Until then, all you're really doing is naysaying. You're going to be doing this for the rest of your life. Just going online, telling people they're all lying, telling people they're brainwashed, but
I never called anybody a liar.
Never coming up with your own explanations for things.
Don't you dare misrepresent me.
Yeah, hang on. Red meat. Relax a second. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen right now. The idea of what they're saying with the moon is...
Sean, I know what they're saying. Sean, please, I know what they're saying. Okay. I know exactly what they're saying.
Yeah, but you don't accept it.
No, because it's a load of... Think about it. Right, okay. You just don't get it.
Why are you asking people?
But here's the thing.
Every waste that guy's time.
Look, every time this
I've done more than think about it.
It's falling.
Why did you make that guy waste his breath?
Stop. Wait. Stop, man.
That's bizarre behavior. Look at his two hands in his head.
So when something's orbiting, it's constantly falling around Earth because of gravity. So instead of falling and ending up down in here, gravity keeps it in that path. So it's constantly always falling. That's how it's able to speed up. If that circle gets larger by any means, the moon will fall further or faster. It'll gain speed. So that's the variable in that distance, in the speed of its orbiting us. That's why it does change, because that path is not 100. It does not stick to one single path. Period. Am I wrong?
Yes.
I don't know what you said.
I know.
Can you explain why the moon moves on a flat
But you don't get my question. You don't understand the question, and you're not understanding what I'm saying. And you think I'm stupid for asking that question.
No, I don't.
There'll be someone out there. Well, Barney, you must admit that is so counterintuitive. You told me that the moon speeds up that object when it's at the Earth. Speeds up that object. The gravity or whatever it is speeds that object up as it passes, meaning it's increasing its force, which I thought now that suggests to me that it's a repulsive force now. Gravity.
Ali, in the equation for gravity, doesn't distance or the square of this distance affect the pull of it? So when it's closer, of course, the force would be more because the two masses are closer, thereby speeding the moon up because the masses are closer, exactly with what the equation says.
Why? It would slow it down. It would slow it down, man. Are you joking? It's not going to speed
speeding up as it gets closer.
The closer it gets, it would slow it down.
No.
How?
Where you get that from?
Golly. Okay, here's what I think is happening.
Drop the ball. Like drop any object and observe it slowing down as it's approaching Earth. No, you observe it speeding up as it's approaching Earth.
Why is this not? I don't get it.
And it will slow it down when it here's a test, right? Wait a minute, here's a testing, right? Get one like a strong magnet and put it on the floor, right? And get another magnet.
Yes.
And push it past that magnet as fast as you can. And the other magnet won't attract it. Push it slower and it will click right to it.
First of all, we are not talking about a magnet.
No.
And if you're saying
it works exactly the same way, except that you have an added variable of friction. That those magnets are having a friction on the floor. If you push it too fast, if the moon was moving way too fast, it would just zoom past the Earth and go in its own direction. And that's what comets do and asteroids when they pass close to Earth, right? That's exactly what happens. They have so much momentum that the Earth doesn't.
And they don't orbit. They don't orbit.
If you push it too slow,
that's nothing to do with the moon. The moon orbits. Asteroids are not orbiting us.
That's what you're describing is Newton's cannon. Shoot it too slow, and it'll just lose all height against the curvature of the Earth until it hits the Earth. Shoot it too fast, and it'll just go away completely. If you give it escape velocity, that's what escape velocity is. It will just keep moving outside. Yeah, orbit is not escape velocity.
Well, there you go. Then the moon when it passes the Earth has the escape velocity because it's gone past it.
No, it doesn't. No,
it's done it.
No,
it's done it.
No,
it already has. It would slow down. It would slow down, Barney. If the closer the Earth gets to the closer the moon gets to the Earth, it would slow.
What are you basing that on?
Gravitational would attract.
What are you basing that on?
Would attract to the center.
What are you basing that on, Ali?
Center is center.
Yeah, I see what he's saying. So the same way we're trying to explain to him, the further the drop it has, the more speed it can accelerate to. He's saying that the orbit would be smaller, so it wouldn't be able to continue the same speed. Am I wrong, Ali?
Near enough. That's not bad, but a wee bit more intricate. But yeah, about that. Yep, nice one, Sean.
Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. I understand that I don't get it. I'm not grasping it completely, but I
No, but that's right. And so that's the problem I've got. That it speeds up as it passes the Earth, which where its strongest gravitational pull is, but it slows down when it's furthest away. That's the problem I've got.
That's exactly what the equation tells you. Why I don't understand why you're misunderstanding that.
Have you done the equation?
Yeah, I have. I've programmed
the model.
I've had the visual gravitational model that I have programmed with my own two hands and put the equations in, and it does work. It works exactly as I expected.
Yeah, me too.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to. I don't mean it out. No, I don't want to turn this show, but I would love loads of questions asked about programming. I know a little bit. What script is it you use when you program?
JavaScript.
JavaScript, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something you'll be able to?
I'm perfectly willing. Like if Sean will give me the space,
yes, yeah.
I'm perfectly willing to come to his show and do the whole programming and thinking out the application live on his channel.
Okay. I'd love to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, let's plan that out, and it'll
just
be me and you.
That guy.
Absolutely, I'd be honored for you to do that.
Just do this for me. I'm not suggesting that you literally do this, but go into a 30-story high-rise, jump out the window, and let me know if you slow down as you get closer.
That's not nice. That's not nice. That is not nice.
What have you got against Barney, Jack? What's Barney ever done to you? How would you say that?
No, I said I'm not suggesting that you do that.
That's not very nice, actually. Barney, listen, I must apologise. You're new at this, but these ballers are a bit vicious. But don't worry, you'll get used to them. You'll get used to them.
Hey, do you guys?
I'm not a baller. I'm a glober.
Ask Ali a question.
You're a little low, Rob.
Can you hear me? Okay now?
Yeah, much better.
All right. Hey, Ali, how long? How long were you listening to flat Earth stuff before you became a flat earther?
Took me about 5 minutes. 10 minutes, maybe.
Okay, and then since you became a flat earther, have you been listening to anti-flat Earth stuff ever since, basically?
Yeah, mostly. Or I read a lot of it. Like for example, orbits and stuff like that. I like to read up on it, and I don't buy the explanation. I knew the exact explanation I was going to get, but yeah, Rob, sorry, that was a bit long-winded. But yeah,
no worries.
Watch all videos.
But my question is, why did you switch over to flat Earth in 5 minutes? But it's so difficult for you to absorb the heliocentric model.
Well, it wasn't because I was already absorbed that, and then I'd been, I was mad on the stars and all that space and everything I used to imagine, being in space and going to the end of the universe, discovering shit and stuff like that, right? But as I say, I just seen this. It was the photographs that got me, the NASA photographs, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. And then I looked into it, I thought, oh. And then I started looking into what I was actually meant to believe about how far the stars are away, and I was like, well, that doesn't add up. And then I find out actually what I've been told, and once I go and look at the theoretical, the actual physics papers, peer-reviewed papers, I find out, wait a minute, that's not what I was taught at school. That's weird, that. And then I started learning things. I'm like, wait a minute, this is not what I got taught. So I started getting a bit suspicious and thinking, well, there's something to this, and then the observations, blah, blah. And then I'm like, right, I can say 100% in my mind anyway, that space is not what they're telling us. I believe there's space. I believe in the moon landings, satellites, ISS. I do believe they're up there, all that kind of stuff. But I just believe they're deceiving us what the properties of space is. That's all. That's it. So, here's me in a nutshell.
So the moon is where it is. The moon is 238,000 miles away.
No, I don't believe that. It is closer. I believe it's closer.
How close?
Well, I have to. I couldn't even put an estimate on it because it'd be impossible for any layman to measure, actually. So you couldn't get a wide enough baseline to do the angles, right? To get a real true measurement, you need a huge baseline, as in and then measure the two angles at the point. But the baseline would have to be thousands of miles long. You couldn't do it in 100 miles. That's too small when you build that triangle. Okay,
so in the 1950s, ham radio operators measured the distance to the moon using radio waves. And they measured they bounced radio waves off the moon, and they measured its distance to a mean distance of 238,000 50s. And then they put retroreflectors on the moon in the 70s. The Russians and the Americans put retroreflectors on the moon.
Yeah, I know about that. I just read up about that, and the laser has got a 6.5 kilometer spread.
Okay, all right.
And they say it's like trying to hit a needle in the haystack, and they don't like doing it in the sun. And that was just about 5 minutes research that I did while everybody else was talking, because I do go and look at things.
5 minutes.
Yeah, and now if it was going to interest me more, I could look deeper. But that just goes to show that I took a look at the reflector, the laser beam, and stuff like that. Right? Okay.
No offense, but here.
No, none taken. You couldn't offend me because
nobody.
Your opinions are relevant. Your opinion of me is irrelevant. Sorry.
Nobody on the flat Earth side is doing any. Nobody on the flat Earth side is doing any deep research. So where I talk about in a conversation like this, we talk about the moon distance. Oh, I don't really know. Maybe it's this. And then what about the sun distance? Oh,
how do you expect me to measure it?
Etc. 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 Okay, but what I'm saying
how can I measure it? Hey, listen, how can I measure the distance? Tell me, and I'll do it.
You could get it. You could get radio. Yeah, you could go find ham radio operators and say, hey, I want to measure the distance to the moon. Okay, I've got a question about the distance to the moon. I don't think it's where they say it is. Convince me. Go to some ham radio operator.
Why would I say that to someone? That's a bit adversarial, knocking on someone's door. Hey, I don't believe where the moon is. Don't be stupid.
Say whatever you want.
You don't. That's not the crucial part. The crucial part is find a ham radio operator and ask him to measure the distance to the moon for you.
Yep.
I know, they call it moonbound.
Now, here's the thing,
moonbound. I know what it is. Hey, listen, it's called moonbound.
Let me tell him Sean G doesn't believe the moon is as far as they say, and so just put it all on him.
Yeah. It's Sean's fault. Subscribe to his channel.
Blame it on someone else. My moon is where they say anything you want. But go to someone who knows about this stuff and ask them to show you how they've done the experiments and
why don't you go? You go for me.
Because I don't doubt.
I did.
What?
You go for me.
We don't doubt. Why would we do? Why would we do your work?
Because you're lower on the food level, the food chain than I am. So
that doesn't.
That's why you should.
Sense. Look, I'm not sure I understand.
Well, because you're a peasant. That's why.
That makes even less sense. I'm a peasant.
Well, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it would.
But anyway,
explain it to me. Why should we do your work? You doubt the distance to the moon, but you want other people to go and find out for you. And when they do that, they come to you and say, "Here's the distance to the moon," and you say you're wrong.
Yeah.
Why don't you find out the distance to the moon?
Why should I?
Here's the
thing.
I'm
not interested.
Why do you want?
Oh, no.
Key to this
I'm not. Hey, listen. I'm not interested.
No. I'm going to get this out. The key to flat Earth belief is this. The key to flat Earth belief is staying ignorant. If you were to actually study the topics that you're asking people on and try and open telling you, then you will understand why the and small and local. And if that happens, you can't allow yourself to abandon in your mind, as you say, la, that is brainwashing and it's cock. So that's how it's working.
But you are brainwashed. But anyway, the point is, to me, flat Earth is just a hobby. And I just it's more of a study, because it's like, I like watching characters like you and Brenda and George and Curved Water and Rory,
right?
and all these people get really triggered about people just asking questions. You get really, it's as if you're emotionally attached.
Got it. Yes. Okay. So
I'm more into the psychological. I'm more into the psychological aspect of it. That's what interests me. And people like you are just perfect.
That's great. Thank you. Excellent.
And thank you for participating in the big experiment.
That's right. Experiment on us. That's right. Oh, and by the way, none of this conversation will have any impact on the current model.
Yeah.
Obviously not.
You can say whatever you want and call people peasants, but what you're not going to do is replace current and moon or any.
But I don't care. You're under the impression that I really care about
It's your
it.
hobby, though, right?
Yeah, but well, it's my hobby. Looking at people and just enjoy. No, that was me just being stupid. I don't look down on anybody.
You do that a lot. I've been in conversation.
That was me trolling.
I've heard stuff.
That was me trolling. That was just to get a reaction. That was just me. I don't look down on anybody. I was just poking you, and
Ali,
what I was doing
I've
was
heard you say stuff
testing.
to people. Unbelievable.
Sorry, but you came charging in here calling us idiots and all that kind of stuff.
When did I call you an idiot?
When
did I call you an idiot?
And thinking that you were some kind more intelligent and stuff like that.
I heard you call him a peasant, but I didn't hear him call you an idiot.
No, of course you wouldn't. I mean, it was a while ago, but it doesn't matter.
I've never called you an idiot.
It's your attitude, the way that you lot come charging in and start, the way that you talk to people. You would not sit next to someone in a pub and meet them for the first time and talk to the way condescending like most ball earthers do to flat earthers. You wouldn't do that in real life.
Ali.
And that's what I find fascinating. And that's why I think most of you are little cowards.
Okay,
I think you
guys, stop just insulting each other. Okay, we get it.
I'm not insulting. I'm just pointing out, Barney. Honestly, I'm not insulting at all. I'm not angry or anything or triggered.
I'm just not having fun. I'm just not having fun at you putting him down and him putting you down. There's no conversation there. I just want to nail down a little bit of your epistemics, because I've heard you agree to this, and I just want to make sure that you really agree with it. So you are asking us to prove to you that the moon is that far. But when we come up with the proof and like two different proofs, you say, oh, I just don't accept that. That's but when we then tell you, okay, you go do those experiments and test them, you say, no, I'm not interested. What possible way then could there be for you to actually check the distance to the moon? Like, don't accept our measurements and our explanations, or you don't care to look into them or understand what we're saying, and you're also not going to look into it yourself. How are you going to get
except, wait a minute. The orbit thing, I know how orbits work. I know how they work, and I know how they explained. As I told you, the answer you gave me doesn't satisfy me. Right. Now, regarding the distance to the moon, why would I want to know that? That's not important to me. I told you, flat Earth, right? Flat Earth to me is a hobby. There's more important things going on in the world than flat Earth, right? So that is what I find fascinating, that people get so entrenched in this subject and
you're repeating yourself.
Yeah,
you just said the same.
See, did you hear that? That's what I'm talking. This is this is brilliant. Exactly that there. That little quote there. But that's the point.
All you're doing is reiterating.
Excuse me, I'll speak to Barney. But that's the point, Barney, is, I have looked into that. The distance to the moon will not prove the shape of the Earth whatsoever. It'll just prove the distance to the moon. Now,
so my position on all of those things is we live in one reality. All of the factual statements about the entirety of that reality need to be mutually consistent and congruent. The explanations and descriptions of reality, like the distance to the moon, the mass of the moon, the mass of the Earth, the curvature of the Earth, the way that gravity functions, the way that refraction of light functions, the way that nuclear physics functions for the light of the sun to light up the moon so that we can see it this way, Rayleigh scattering, all of those things need to point to a single reality for them to make sense. My worldview doesn't function if I just go, oh, I'll take this bit of information, but I don't care about this one, and this one can be whatever. And right, they all have to coalesce into a single description of reality, or at least approximate it.
Yeah, right. Okay, then. So there's great, because you've got me asking a question. how did they find the weight of the moon then, or the mass, how much it actually weighs then? How did they find that out?
Honestly, I don't know.
Well, there you go then. That's exactly. And how could you find out if nothing weighs? If nothing weighs anything up in space, apparently in the vacuum, it's floating about there or whatever.
I misused.
How did they weigh it?
I misused the term. I said weight. I should have said mass.
Yeah, I said mass, but never mind. But how did they determine the mass of the moon?
So there should be at least there should be several ways which should be mutually congruent. Measuring its composition by merely observing it, its rock, what kind of rock has that color and that refractive index, and stuff like that. If it's made up of that rock, observing its seismic movement to see its internal structure, seeing is it liquid inside or is it solid inside. If it's solid inside, it should align with our theories of planetary creation. So more massive stuff should be in the center and lighter stuff on the outside. Based on its radius and distance, we should be able to calculate what the mass is. All that should be equally congruent with the gravitational calculation. Like its orbital speed, its orbital distance should coincide with the mass of the Earth and the mass of the Moon and the Newtonian. Right? If you look at it in six different ways, there should be one answer.
Yeah, but you do realize that the moon has been orbiting Earth and the planets have been orbiting the sky or moving about the sky for a bit longer than the theory of gravity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could admit, wait a minute, and you could admit that these objects were observed and documented 10,000 years ago. Eclipses were predicted, the whole thing. They still actually use the same predictions that they used, or the same calculus or algebra or whatever it is, the same mathematical equations that they used 10,000 years ago. They still use the same. So therefore, I could attribute any amount of mass to any of the objects and get the mathematics to fit.
No, you couldn't.
Well, yes, actually,
in fact, not even Newton could. That's why.
Well, okay then. Right, here you go then. Right, here's a good one then. Also, the mathematics. There's a guy that drew a model of the solar system, right? Of the solar system, and it was geocentric. Same mathematics.
No, you absolutely can draw. You can have a real.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that's the thing. And that was. And now correct me if I'm not if I'm wrong here. Was that not before Newton discovered gravity?
No, that was ancient Greeks, the Antikythera system.
Yeah, Ptolemy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, was it? Yeah, Ptolemy, that's right. And Copernicus took over. But there you go. So there's two different sets, right? Two different sets of mathematics, and they work the same mathematics, and they work out for the exact same.
Yeah.
The only difference is the only reason that they done away with the epicycles is because Copernicus couldn't handle it. And he never even done observations.
No.
He didn't even do observations. He done it with mathematics and changed it.
No, what Copernicus did was very accurately measure and try to fit his measurements with the old system, and it didn't work, and he couldn't get it to work for the rest of his life. And he went to Tycho Brahe, who had even better measurements, because Copernicus was so convinced that the Ptolemaic system was correct that he doubted his own measurements. So he went to Tycho Brahe, who had better measurements, and the error was even bigger. And he was forced by the measurements that didn't coincide with that system to admit that it it wasn't circles, and it wasn't circles within circles. It was ellipses, and that's how he came up with the 4 laws of planetary motion. Based on those 4 laws of planetary motion and the movement of the objects on Earth, Newton then came up with the formula with a single formula which accurately described both of them. But even he knew that his formula was wrong because it didn't accurately describe the motion of Mercury. Right? It all works if you just
yes,
don't
and
look
then
well enough.
Einstein solved that. Einstein solved that
Einstein
problem.
solved that by exactly.
By fudging a load of crap, man, and turning
right. He fudged it
and
so
turning,
much
hey,
that
listen,
he
and turning, wait a minute, and turning,
years of observations
wait a minute, he turned the downward acceleration into the upward acceleration.
Sorry, that was funny. Sorry.
I'm going to end it. But listen, anyone in the chat, before I ended it completely. Okay, so for weeks now, the Mind of God has been throwing these little jabs about his tests he wants to do, and I've been jumping on his case about being able to explain it. So I'm going to end this hangout, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Mind of God. He says he can explain this in 180 seconds. I'm not going to get into it. I'll get into it tomorrow on that live stream, but I want to give him the opportunity to explain this and see if he's figured out all the things I've been saying to him and see if he really understands how to get this going. Again, I'm going to let him say it. I'm not going to get into it till tomorrow. I have figured out, at least for the time-wise, the live stream will be at the exact same time I started today. So I'm going to start getting a little bit more consistent. But I did want to say, Rob, I do appreciate you coming in. I know you didn't get a chance to really say much, but I do appreciate you being on. Not sure if you have a channel or something you want to tell people to go look at. If not, you may just be listening in. No worries. Red Cloud, my friend, you know you're always more than welcome.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
Barney. Or hang on, Red. Did you have anything you wanted to promote?
Yeah, actually, when the chat, if the hangout ends, is it okay if I chat with Barney still? Is
yes,
that right?
No, yeah. I'm not going to end this hangout. I'm just going to take it off the OBS so I can do the.
Yeah. Barney, is it okay if we chat for a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, hey, Barney. I'm going to come back to this hangout when I'm done with the stream, and we can discuss, or if you're not here, I'll message you, and we can talk about that program you were talking about, because I'll give you the whole floor, just you and me, so you can get through it all. It sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
All right,
it'll be a hell of a boring
I don't care.
show, which will be interesting in the last 20 seconds, but that way you can literally watch me think it through and put it to the paper and me explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
And I think the big disconnect of understanding these things is that they don't readily make it available to show us how they're getting to these conclusions. So I think that would be awesome. And,
I'd love to.
Yeah. So we'll do that. We'll talk about that, and I'll let everyone know before we do it. So if you do think it's going to be boring, you may not want to be here for it, but too bad.
Oh,
anyway.
I definitely would like to be.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care.
Can you do me a favor? Could you contact me somehow or whatever?
Oh yeah.
Contact me in the Discord thing so I know when it's going to be. I don't want to miss it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll make sure it's not tomorrow, so you people get a chance to know when it's going to happen.
Cool.
Did you want to promote anything, Barney? Just.
Nope.
Okay. Ali B, man, I love you to death. I love when you're here. You're more than welcome on my panel anytime. You know that this is home base for you as well. You can have the floor anytime you need, and I do appreciate you being here.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you putting up with me, Sean. Thanks very much. Barney, I've got a question for you. Do you know Pragma, the script Pragma? Do you know about that?
Well, you guys can talk about that in a second.
Hang on. Vaguely familiar, but not really.
Allan, thank you for coming on. I know you don't say too much, but if you did want to say anything, promote, you have the opportunity. If not, I'll see you on the next one. I again appreciate you. When you hang out. Just know, Alan, if you're here, you will also share controls with me because you don't seem to jump in arguments or anything like that. So if you ever think it's out of control, you have power to mute as well now. Congratulations, you're one of 2 people. So I'm going to go ahead and end this hangout. Get the one with the Mind of God going real quick. It's going to be a very quick hangout with him. And then I'm going to end the stream so everyone knows what's going on. Again, guys, everyone on the panel, I appreciate the shit out of you guys being here. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank you.
All right, so got the hangout ended. Now, Mind of God, I'm setting up the empty one that I have. It's going to take me 2.5 seconds. And then I will... give me half a second. I'm joining it. I'm going to add you right now to it. And you get the opportunity to do this. Again, I don't know if this is a valuable testing or experiment that the Mind of God has. But I'm, again, anybody who is confident that they have a way to explain a test to verify what it is, and they want to get on here and have the time, I promise you, I'll give you the time. End of the show, middle of the show, beginning of the show, whatever's best for you. Just let me know. The Mind of God, I set that out there. It's going to be in your probably inbox by now. There we go. Yeah, and until it gets you, I'll talk. I like today. It was a good one. I want to say right off the bat, Pete Shea, if you're still out there listening, thank you. For you guys who don't know, me and Pete Shea don't usually get along. I did request to him personally, keep a certain topic out of it in 9/11, because I know I don't agree with him and I don't want to make it there. So Pete, thank you very much for respecting that, and more than welcome on my panel, my friend. The Mind of God, how you doing, sir?
What's up, man?
Doing good. So you've been for a while now. You've been really pushing this experiment to test where we live, and you said you guys pretty much got a good grasp on it, and so I decided to give you a floor to explain.
We got a good one for a start at least.
Okay. Just so you know, I'm going to give you the complete floor to explain it. I'm not going to interject at all. Even if I have something I wanted to add to it, I'm not going to. Yeah. But I'm going to talk about it on the next stream. So now that tomorrow, you can come back too. So that way you're not in the dark about that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. It's not bulletproof, but I think it's good the more we talk about it, like any test, because then it'll, eliminate, just any ambiguity when we actually do it, or any sort of things that we should have thought about beforehand.
Absolutely. And that's why I wanted you to bounce it off me, because even if I see something or I question something, I can bring it to you, and if it would need to be changed, you guys can talk about that. Or if I'm wrong in what I thought, then I get a better understanding of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I said, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So this was post Jose's hangout earlier, and then me and like a handful of people were on it. George, Dean, Rumpus, Carlos, and these kind of people. So we just kind of entertain this notion of using GPS. I think that it's a very, very powerful tool. So what I'm thinking, and there was a general kind of agreement that, if we can get precise GPS, then this could work. It might even work without very, very precise GPS. But the idea is basically create a cube offshore, just in some place. Create a cube, like so. You shoot lasers in one direction, in another, along X, Y, and then you can create a cube, and then at all those intersection points, a unique GPS coordinate has to be there. And so the distance between those points is governed by how accurate the GPS system that's used to create this cube. And so, but the unique feature about this cube, again, is all the lines are straight, like objectively straight. They're, we might need somebody like Jesse Kozlowski. That's what George Nachik recommended, that we get involved, somebody like him. But so you need fairly accurate GPS equipment, be able to draw straight lines at a local level, like using lasers, or possibly even like a physical thing. And so now let's say that we have this cube, and I don't know the dimensions of it, but I would think maybe, fairly substantial. We're not talking about 5 feet by 5 feet, just big enough that, we've moved sufficiently and seen, GPS report a different number. And then we extrapolate on all sides and show that, it works. If we go even further down, we can get some comfort that it holds even outside of the cube. So once that cube is created and then, the outsides, like I said, are stretched and tested and it holds, it can be extrapolated basically accurately. That is the foundation. And so now we have a nice grid that we can start taking measurements. And so the next part is much more, I would say, straightforward in that we just go on a boat or if you're along the shoreline, you again use this same sophisticated GPS, which George, at least from his initial thoughts, that you could put it on a boat. You probably couldn't mount it on a drone or iPhone is not accurate enough. But
said I wasn't going to jump in, but there's equipment to survey on a boat. That's kind of what they do for harbors and when they're drilling and stuff.
And that Dean actually brought up a good point. He's like, you could use the sophisticated equipment that Jesse has, and then you could also use potentially GPS available that's on a boat as well.
Fish
and
finder.
So, double check the numbers and
fish finder,
all that. So basically, you just, you take a huge range of samples across, like a Great Lake or across like something, and then you take 50 to 100 or potentially more samples across a water body, and you plot those on the coordinate system that was created, quote unquote, offline, and then that's pretty much it.
Perfect. Okay, so there's nothing really that I could say about that. That's actually thank you, because for the past few days we've kind of been going back and forth at each other in chats and stuff, and much respect to the fact that you guys actually, that you're taking that effort to figure out an experiment that a group, not depending sides, but a group in itself can agree on. Thank you.
Yeah, I think they like it. They think it's fair. I think, again, this test is less risky just because there's no optics, there's no like cameras in that way that the other things are dependent on. So that grid that's created, quote unquote, offline, that's where somebody needs to be consulted that is a professional, like, Jesse or somebody like that. I would even prefer a third party engineering do it.
Well,
but
I could look at it and I could assess it but I don't know everything, but that is the industry I'm in as well. So I can actually look at some of the data and verify it. But like I said, there could be steps that I would need to even talk to Jesse about. I'm trying to get Jesse actually on and have a discussion about this stuff because he's actually does the industry that I've always wanted to do,
Yeah.
So
the nice thing about this though, Sean, is like, it's literally, you could see it. Like you could literally put the lasers in the ground, you could see it shoot up, and then you can move the GPS thing along that laser and actually literally get a report of the number. And I don't know, it's like very, very, tangible. So that grid is very, very important. And then the cool thing is, like, let's just say it's done, and then a step-by-step procedure is made. Like, this is how you create the cube. We use this device, these lasers with this GPS technology. I guess Jesse stuff is kind of a bit more expensive, but you might be able to rent it. And so, that's the grid or the grid. And then you literally, the cool thing about this, you literally can sample any water body anywhere, because like if we're, as flat earthers, we believe that the water levels on the large bodies of water would all be fairly at an equi level. So the more data points you take, the less risky it is when you try and map those points onto this cube on this grid. You're gonna get a fairly definitive answer. So obviously water can go up and down and all that, fair enough, but again, the more data points you take, and we all sort of agreed, the further apart those data points are, the less likely you will have ambiguity when you plot it on that cube.
Yeah. Well, what you'll do is you'll set. I know I wasn't going to say it, but I'm interested in this demonstration because actually this is part of my profession. What you were describing in the beginning is with the first steps with the cube is assessing a grid, and then fact checking that grid so that once you you've established that you have this grid, then you can decide what you want out of the experiment, and you have a knowingly accurate platform to do the experiment on. I think it's a fucking excellent idea, and way you explained it is awesome.
I don't think there's that much ambiguity. I think that, again, it takes time. Obviously, it's not easy. And then to set up that grid and come up with an appreciable number of points, in an ideal world, it would be like kind of a football field and like a few of them stacked on top of each other, but something big. And then you also have to then extrapolate out a few points to make sure that it works.
Well, the best
outside of the grid.
And the best part about doing it the way you guys want to do it is, say that you go out there and it's misty the whole time you guys are out there. You guys can still do this, and you'll set your points, and your points are each a spot on that distinguishes elevation and location of each spot of that grid. And then you guys can come back anytime you want. And within a half hour, you turn on the computer, find your location, and then just go to that location and pinpoint it. And you guys don't have to redo the grid again.
Yeah. And the cool thing about the sample points too, it's like, let's say you are on a boat and obviously it's rocking and stuff. You just sit there and, you take, you just take measurements every few seconds, and you can average it out. You can take whichever one, and then just settle it out, and then go to a new point, and then, let it settle. And then you might need to take an average. So again, it's statistical. It's not perfect. But the cool thing about those data points is like, you can really grab those anywhere around the world on any large water body, and map it onto this localized grid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just see what's up. And again, you can do it on different water bodies around the world. Different people can do it. And then to me, something like that, I know people in your chat are saying how accurate GPS and all that is. It's not an issue of that. It's an issue of how tight we can get that grid. And the cool thing, according to George and others who actually know about GPS, if you have fairly expensive equipment, you can get very tight grids.
Yeah, basically the more advanced the system, the less of a margin it will give.
Sean, he's talking about centimeters.
Oh no,
That's on some that's on some next level stuff. You know what I mean?
I don't think a lot of people know about the survey equipment and how it actually works, but they have systems, and understand this, when a project is being started, and this is actually small scale, believe it or not, compared to what they're capable of. But if they're building a stadium in your hometown, they have to know where almost every strut or support beam or support a column. They need to know a lot of things before they even touch the ground. And the survey equipment is so precise that they're able to measure and place islands. So imagine when you go into a restroom and there's that little mini island as you walk around the little corner. They can pinpoint those four corners before anything's ever there. Again, when the Mind of God said down to the centimeter, that's being generous. That's being very nice to explain how close it gets closer.
If that's the case, we don't need to go to a football, something on that order. Again, if Jesse's able to do it on the order of a street block or something like that, I'm sure he's familiar. But basically, the longer you do that grid, and then you actually see it working along those straight lines.
Yeah. The bigger the grid, the faster you'll see the results.
Agreed.
But the longer it will take.
Yeah, then we just need some rendering software to take that grid and then plot those points on that grid. And that's just its own coordinate system. It's not a GPS thing anymore. It's just those numbers that are captured on GPS, we're plotting them on that local grid. And it's not GPS anymore. It's just its own coordinate system. It's that grid relative to the water. That's it. So we hijack GPS temporarily. And it's a relative position based grid. That's what it is.
Basically, you're building a platform to measure on rather than just using the scheme you have already. It's basically a way of using. These are the reasons tangent lines, or as I refer to them as mean lines, are used for. It's a way to figure out the elevations of everything without having to use those the offsets that I've always talked about. It's gets complicated.
Yeah, this is more elegant.
Yeah,
this is way more elegant because it's I mean, straight lines are straight lines, you know, like if that sophisticated GPS equipment is granular and then we force it to function along straight lines, that's what it is. Essentially, you're just reprojecting all of the GPS coordinates onto straight lines. That's what it is. And we're just reading it off, and then we're looking at what does water do? Does it follow that same trend, or does it have a curve? It's simple. There's nothing really. So the people in your chat who apparently are technology deniers, these people need to maybe talk to some of their other ballers who think that this is very straightforward.
No, I see exactly what you're saying. And I'm going to explain it. I said I wasn't going to, but it's going to take me 10 seconds. I'm not going to give my opinion. I'm just going to explain what the outcome of what's happening so far is. And it's the steps that I personally know are the steps you're supposed to take to figure everything out that you're trying to. The reason I'm very interested in and respect the shit out of what you've given so far is you're not pushing so hard. You're not looking for the end result of everything. And I think a lot of people thought or expect that when you're talking about this. This is actually what's supposed to happen. This is the planning phase to have a planning phase.
Exactly.
So I'm impressed. I'm going to go ahead and take off now. I'll jump into this tomorrow, so that way we can actually have a conversation about it and get into it, because it's a fucking great idea. Period. I have nothing else to say about it.
So just so you know, I'm going to prepare a PowerPoint and dump it on my site, and just if you want to comment or just any thoughts down the road come to your mind to prevent somebody from putting effort that is unnecessary.
Absolutely. Again, if you want to present it when you're done with that, and you need somewhere to present it or something, more than welcome here. Anytime.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I just emailed George a few minutes ago, and if he can get me, him, and Jesse, and you or whoever wants to talk, I would not be offended if people are like, what about this? What about this? Because before we waste anybody's time.
Let's just get to the pinpoint. Yeah, perfect. Actually, I'm probably going to talk to George in probably a little bit in the Discord, so I'll let him know to check his messages and see if I can jump in on it with you guys and just be ears. I don't need to be.
They like it. They don't like the drone, and I like this better than the drone because it removes that.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing than I think you're realizing in the drone world. But I actually started realizing what you were saying with it. You hadn't presented this part of that idea, so that's probably why I'm so confused by it. But this is a great idea because
I think it's good.
You understand it. You agree to it, and I think that's what the big problem has always been. It's always been Globers do theirs, Flat Earth does theirs, and I know that what everyone in my chat that's a Glober is going to say right now. Well, we invite Flat Earthers. Yeah, Flat Earthers invite Globers too, and they don't show. So it goes both ways. But
hey, this is good for both of us because there's not too many things that can screw this up, and then we can do it in a few different water bodies. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the only thing that we'd have to then be conspiracy theorists and say those straight lines are not straight. That's all we could potentially critique this, or we could say that the extrapolation doesn't hold for the GPS, which is possible. But again, that's the nice thing about that is you can do it again.
Yeah. So and that's what the platform is for. The grid is for, so you can fact check it before you waste time. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and end this now, and I'll message you because I have your email now, so I'll be able to message you through the Hangouts. Cool. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Take care. Bye.
All right, guys. Just so everyone is clear and understands what he was explaining, it has nothing to do with proving the Earth is flat or a sphere. First off, this is what if you're going to figure out where we live or take these measurements, you need a accurate grid, an accurate like a checkerboard of area that is mapped out with elevations and pinpoints and everything to know you have an accurate platform to do your accurate test. So what he just explained is basically the setup for an accurate grid. It's a great starting step, and I'm impressed that he came at it with that because I honestly wasn't expecting it. I'm not going to say any more, but it is a great idea. And tomorrow I'm going to get into this. I'm going to talk to hopefully my guy can come in, and I'm going to get into this test that they want to do, and so you guys can understand the steps that they're going to be taking, because I actually know exactly what they're going to be doing, and I've actually done it hundreds of times. It's a very good idea. With that, guys, I appreciate every fucking body that's been here and hung out for the past fucking 3 hours. Thank you very fucking much. Bjorn, thank you for the super chats earlier. Fucking A, thank you. I already drawn a blank on who's on the panel, but everyone knows who was. I appreciate it so damn much. Again, I want to do these tests, be more open about it with everyone, Globe Insiders together, agreeing, and really get into where we live and how to come about that. Because I personally 100% believe you don't need scientists, you don't need NASA or the government to help you figure out. We can do it ourselves easily, and luckily we have a community of people that have the means, if we can all get together to do this and really get that truth out there. Again, the Mighty God, thank you for coming on.